one in the final of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. 31 years old, Magnus Carlsen, the world #1, takes on the 19-year-old super prodigy Arjun Erigaisi in a tough fight to win the tournament. And in the studio to guide you through all the moves in the final, as always, Grandmaster David Howell and International Master Jovanka Houska. And you might notice we're missing Grandmaster Simon Howell. He will be at the good night today. Are you enjoying yourself, Simon?
I've got the hardest job in the world today, down in a chess pub in the centre of Oslo. So, yeah, it's going to be a hard day's work, but I'll just have to do my best, won't I? And everyone is invited also to come down, and this will be a bit of a watch party. We're at the Good Night Chess Pub, so get yourself down here if you're in the Oslo area.
And we are looking forward to watch the final with all of you around the world. Welcome to the final of the Julius Baer Generation Cup.
This move I have never seen before.
It's now or never for Giri.
Unbelievable how he finds that move.
We've got to call that Prag style.
They're playing like stockfish.
But he's gone for it.
White hanging on, and he's dropped a bishop.
Dropped his bishop.
Handsome mistake.
This is so difficult.
Whoa! Oh!
No way!
Hello! That is the kind of move that I like to see.
And today we would like to see some great chess from our two finalists, and odds are that is exactly what we will get when Magnus Carlsen faces off against Arjun Erigaisi. They did take the two first spots also in the preliminaries. Are we simply seeing a final between the two best players right now?
Yeah, it feels like the chess gods have given us this final for a reason. They were very impressive in the prelims. They've been equally impressive in the knockouts, and whoever wins this tournament will be a worthy winner of the whole event. It's definitely the two on-form players. Yeah,
Magnus Carlsen, as always, a big favorite, but Arjun Erigaisi making it to the final. Is that something you would have thought before the tournament, Jovanka?
I'm not surprised to see him in the final. You know, he's an incredible talent. You know, Magnus himself called him amazing, and he has such dynamic play, and he's so good at calculation. It really doesn't surprise me that he's here.
Yeah, you've been 19, David, and today Arjun's gonna play the biggest match of his career against the world #1. He must be feeling nervous. What would you do if you were him now?
It's hard to say. We've called him the Iceman, and he's normally really calm, but he has shown nerves the last couple of days. So for him, he mentioned his support network, his parents. They're there in the building with him. Just talk to them between games. Try and stay calm. Today is going to be difficult. It's maybe the first time, the most intense match he's ever played. But it is a two-day final, so I would just take today as learning experience. And tomorrow is the big one. He'll still have chances no matter how today goes.
Exactly. And of course, he can also take inspiration from yesterday's semi-final against one of the best players this season on the tour, Liam Le. Arjun Erigaisi played some fantastic chess.
Oh, there we go.
He goes for it.
I've still got the magic.
Hacker.
Yeah, the hacker magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually in this variation, as we showed, the black queen hit. If she does move, take a pawn with check. The king moving. Black is 3 pawns up, but Erigaisi doesn't care. Black rook is dropping. Game over. Erigaisi takes the win. He's hanging together by a thread for black right now. He needs to eliminate these two white pawns. If he can get these with his knight, it's a draw.
Probably winning, though.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of problems here.
He moves the other way. He's now losing.
Okay, so now the winning technique is for the king to run to the right side.
Oh.
This is it. This is going to win.
Oh, Vincent down at 2 seconds. 1 second.
Oh, make a move.
Oh, did you see him? He reacted. He forgot about the clock.
Oh.
He made it with 1 second.
Oh, wow.
What a game.
Wow. Magnus shaking his head, but after 93 moves, a very long game, he takes a win.
This pseudo-sacrifice, just giving back some material for black, who looks like a killer. If white takes this rook, he loses his light squared bishop. The black queen will come in. Looks very good. So white is about to win the black queen, but he's had to give up a bishop. So right now, it's, okay, 2 rooks for a queen. But at the very least, the white queen is going to drop off.
Yeah.
There we go. The white queen is doomed, and Magnus Carlsen is in the final.
Attacking with everything here, so yeah, this is it's going to be a very interesting final. Yeah, right. I mean, Arjun versus Young versus old.
Here it is. We have a teenager in the final in the Julius Baer Generation Cup. He knocks out Liam, one of the top players this season on the tour. It was nice to see some emotions from the Iceman, Arjun Erigaisi, knocking out Liam in the semi-final yesterday, and in the quarterfinals, Erigaisi knocked out the youngest player in the tournament, Christopher Yu. Both of his quarterfinal and semi-final ended up in blitz tiebreaks, where Arjun was the strongest. Now, Magnus Carlsen, he was the winner in the preliminaries, losing only that one game that he forfeited against Hans Niemann. He won the quarterfinal against Levon Oronian, winning 3 strong games, and in the semi-final yesterday against Vincent Keimer, 2 wins, and Magnus Carlsen is ready for another final in the Julius Baer Generation Cup. It's going to be the first final for Arjun Erigaisi, but Magnus Carlsen, he's been here many times before, and the final will be played over 2 days. This is only the first day, best out of 4 rapid games, and we will have a winner of this first match, then a second match tomorrow, best out of 4 games. So if they win each one match, then it will be decided in blitz tiebreaks tomorrow. But first of all, a match today with 4 rapid games. And Magnus, have you ever seen him as strong as you're seeing him right now on the tour, David?
Maybe once or twice, but for such a long tournament to be so strong every single day, that's actually rare for Magnus. Normally there's one dip. Well, normally he starts a bit slower, but he started on fire and he's kept up just incredible shape. It still feels like he has another extra gear or 2 to hit if he needs to. So, yeah, Magnus, he's in top form, and it's been impressive considering everything's going on around him.
Yeah, how impressed are you, Jovanka, that he's actually been able to play this way with maybe the biggest chess drama of his life going on around him?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely amazing that he's been able to play such fine chess, as you both mentioned. Yeah. What can I say? Hats off to him.
Yeah.
I've been incredibly impressed. Maybe he seems to revel perhaps in the attention, because after all, chess is his solace. It's his form of meditation.
And hopefully it's not going to be dramatic. Only fun down at the Good Night with Grandmaster Simon Williams today. Simon, are there any people there yet to cheer on, I bet, Magnus, since this is in Oslo?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a fair few people down here, but, you know, we do need more people coming down. Remember, it's the Good Night pub in Oslo. If you're around, pop down. You can see they've got an amazing beer selection behind me. Loads of lovely beer. I'm not sure how many I'll get through, because obviously I'm working very hard today. But it's going to be a fascinating final. Can Arjun do some damage to Magnus? And I think he's got to use the white pieces. If he can play well with white, you never know. Some upsets could be on the cards.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about Magnus in this tournament, Simon? Do you think there are chances he's just going to crush Arjun with the way he's playing now?
I think there's a good chance. I mean, he's playing so well. I mean, playing like that under pressure is pretty amazing, with all the media looking at him. And I heard Jovanka in the studio saying maybe it helps him. Maybe he plays great under this pressure. So there is a chance he could crush it today. I don't know what people at home think, but one thing's for sure, we're going to have a lot of people commentating and watching the chess down here with beer. So it's going to be good.
Enjoy it, Simon. It's going to be interesting later on also to hear from the Norwegian fans. Are they still big fans of Magnus, or have they been a little bit disappointed with the drama? Simon will check with the fans down at the Good Night pub in Oslo. And Magnus, he is playing in Oslo. Let's head into the play zone. We started out with 16 players. 8 of them left us in the preliminaries, and now only 2 are left. Magnus Carlsen at 6 o'clock in Oslo. Arjun Erigaisi is going to be 9:30 in the evening when he starts the first game in the final. And let's hear what the 2 players said yesterday after making it through to the final.
It will be very interesting to play against Magnus that 2 days in a row. And I'll definitely learn a lot. It will help me with my chess for sure.
We are looking forward to this final. What's going to be your plan, your strategy?
Nothing particular as such. Maybe I'll just check some openings and try to play my best chess.
I mean, I only played a couple of games against him. The first was a draw in the World Blitz, and the second was the first game of the preliminaries here But he's amazingly strong, very good practically as well. So he's a very tough opponent, as I said earlier. On an earlier day, I think he's certainly a top 10 player in the world when it comes to Rapid Blitz.
At 19, you were already 2,800. What chances do you give Arjun of becoming what we call in the studio super duper grandmaster at 2,800?
If I was him, I wouldn't focus too much on that. It's clear that he's improving. He's doing very well, and he's probably also gonna have challenges at some point, but that they come potentially when playing against the best in the world and not before. Very, very positive, and I'm very curious to see how he will do also in other events against top players.
So Magnus Carlsen saying that Arjun shouldn't be thinking about the 2,800 rating, but Magnus Carlsen, he can be thinking about 2,900 rating in the tour today, because if he wins 3 games in a row here from the get-go, he will reach 2,900 on the tour ratings. I mean, that's huge, David.
That's huge. It's unprecedented, never been done before, but as Magnus hints at himself, the way you get high ratings is by not actually focusing on that, just by focusing on the board. The more you think about the ratings, the more difficult it will become. You'll get emotional, you'll make poor decisions. So it's about the games for him. If Magnus doesn't hit 2,900 today, he might hit it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or he might hit it the next tournament, but he's very focused on the games, and I think that's a good sign.
So he laughed at me when I said super duper grandmaster. But you're like, what is a 2,900 grandmaster then?
2,900.
Well, 28 is super duper.
Ultra grandmaster, maybe super
trooper.
Yeah.
Supercalifragilistic. I don't know.
I like it. Yeah, we need a word because Magnus Carlsen is heading for 2,900 in the tour ratings. And when it comes to his head-to-head score on the tour against Arjun Erigaisi, they played 1 game against each other last season. That was a draw, and in the preliminaries in this tournament, a win for Magnus Carlsen. And Magnus also mentioned a game they played in a World Rapid and Blitz World Championship, but they have very little experience against each other. Will that be hard in terms of opening preparation, maybe especially for Magnus?
Yeah, it's rare at this level. Usually you see dozens of games, if not hundreds of games between rivals. And Magnus, I was there in the World Rapid and Blitz last year when he played Arjun. After the game, he was like, wow, the kid calculates so quick. And that was a draw. Arjun was on the back foot, struggling, but he found some really nice tactics to survive. And Magnus has maximum respect. Like you said, the opening is going to be tricky for both. It's hard to guess what Magnus is going to play. He plays every opening under the sun, but he isn't so familiar with Erigaisi, and that's a different challenge.
19 years old now, and he's had incredible progress over the last 2 years. This is Arjun's over-the-board rating. First from September 1st, 2020, he was a 5,900 player at that time, 17 years old. 2 years later, he is above 2,700 at 19 years old. Is this a very fast growth from 25 to 27, Jovanka?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to bear in mind that it's actually not that easy to gain so many points, because when you reach a certain rating, 2,400, your K factor changes to 10, and it becomes very, very difficult. But he's managed it in the space of 2 years. That's incredibly impressive. And to be 2,700, which is one of the strongest grandmasters in the world, just at the age of 19, well, what can I say?
Incredible.
Incredible, yeah.
And we could see his prodigy rank at the moment is 8. That means he is the 8th highest rated 19-year-old in history. And being top 10 on the prodigy rank estimates that you are likely to reach 2,800. So it's going to be interesting to follow his career. And these are the highest ratings ever achieved in the history of chess before or at the age of 19. Alireza Firouzja is on top of this list. But right behind him, Magnus Carlsen, he was at 19 years old already above 2,800. Arjun Erigaisi, he is in 8th place on this top list in the history of chess. And basically all the names, David, we're seeing on this list did become one of the top players in the world.
Yeah, I mean, he already is, Arjun, and this is no guarantee of future success, but it's a good indicator that he can certainly progress further. He's got plenty of years, as Magnus hinted at earlier, to learn, to gain experience, and I wouldn't be surprised if someday he hits 2800, but he's just focusing on this tournament for now.
Yeah.
And still a long way to go on this journey.
We called him the Iceman, because exactly like he's sitting right now, getting ready for the game, is what he usually looks like, playing these games, even if it is against the top players in the world. And today, up against a player that we saw yesterday, Magnus Carlsen, grinding out the games until he wins them. What is Arjun's style, Jovanka?
Well, it's a lot more active, you know, as David mentioned, you know, he relies on calculation. We've seen him playing a very active style. He's not afraid to hack at an opponent, come at them. And I was a bit distracted by Arjun raising the bottle of water. But he seems so mild-mannered, actually. But on the board, he's a beast.
Yeah.
I think he was sorting out the air conditioning there,
Yeah.
actually, just making sure he has the perfect air quality, perfect playing conditions for this final.
Yeah. That is a very good idea. We did see his fellow Indian, Pragnananda, losing in the quarterfinals. His air quality was super bad. Airthings told us that he had almost 2,000 in CO2 levels, which is not good. So keeping air quality good is one of the recipes to becoming a great chess player. And Arjun now getting ready against Magnus Carlsen. What should we expect from this match? These two players, their styles, and also being in a final with nerves, especially for Arjun.
Yeah, so especially in the early stages of the game, I think there's two possible ways it could go. Magnus could take him on head-to-head in an opening battle, just test the youngster's knowledge, test the depth of his understanding. But Erigaisi has shown he's very good in the opening. He's done his research. He's clearly played lots of practice games in the openings he likes. And Magnus, the other alternative strategy he can go for is to just take the book out of known waters very early on. And Arjun is a relatively unknown quantity. Maybe that'll help him, but I mean, I guess it's just hard to choose. These first few games, they'll just be feeling each other out, and Magnus will want to start heavy, and he'll want to start well with white. As Simon said, Erigaisi is much more dangerous when he has the white pieces. So when he's black, occasionally a bit vulnerable. Some very controversial opening choices, as we've seen so far in the tournament.
And the few times we have seen Magnus uncomfortable is when players attack him. So let's see if Arjun will do that. Here we go. This is game one in the final.
Yeah, and it's the Reti opening. White bringing his knight out on the first move. Now, Black is just developing his bishop, very sensible. Black has occupied the center with pawns, but White is super flexible. White usually castles the king here or pushes a pawn forward in the center of the board. And yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways this game could go. Magnus allows Black to fully occupy the center. Arjun says no, just bringing knights out.
And it's crunch time now. How is Magnus going to continue with his pieces? Is he going to step his queen's pawn 2 squares forward, as we've seen him do before? Maybe just one step forward, or maybe he's actually going to pick up the c pawn and move that one 2 squares. Anything can happen.
Yeah, and Magnus, he's played these types of positions before, and he loves the flexibility. He loves just being able to choose from a bunch of different plans. But Black is rock solid. Arjun clearly knows what he's going to be doing. And yeah, it's hard to surprise the really well-prepared young Indian player.
What do you predict, David, do you think?
I don't know. It'll be a pawn push. I just don't know which one. And symmetrical position after this pawn push.
And he did something very similar against Vincent Keimer. No, it was slightly different because the dark square bishop was...
Magnus has had this position, I think, against Jordan van Foreest a few times on the tour, at least twice on the tour that I remember. And yeah, Magnus just picking his poison.
So had it a few times against Jordan van Foreest.
Yeah, Magnus, and I remember one game was a very, very interesting draw, and I think Magnus might have won the other one. OK, he pushes a pawn just 1 square. Usually that pawn pushes 2 squares forward, but this is still well-known stuff. Arjun clearly has done his preparation. Black pushing a pawn. I really love what Black is doing, actually, with his last pawn push, just gaining space on the queen side. And meanwhile, Magnus developing pieces. It feels to me like Magnus wants to avoid that opening battle. That's a kind of mark of respect to his opponent. He doesn't want to get involved in any kind of pre-game opening preparation discussions. He just wants to play chess, essentially.
Yeah.
Just wants to get his pieces onto good squares.
And checking the database, not too many games. And there have been 2 games, though, by former world champion Vladimir Kramnik.
Oh.
Yeah, David.
How did you know that, David?
Kramnik was famous not for this last bishop move by white, but the previous pawn move. Nobody ever played it. Everyone thought, it looks really unambitious. But Kramnik played it, and Kramnik is a trendsetter in the opening. I've also studied this type of thing from white and black. I've played, well, too many games, more than I can remember, in this type of opening, not this exact position, but this the start of the opening. And this last queen move looks a bit mysterious, but white's queen and dark square bishop have lined up.
Yep, they have lined up, and no one has actually dared to do this before. Ooh. So we are in new territory, and that always is very exciting because, yep, the queen and bishop have lined up, but it's very interesting to see what's going to happen next.
So is this a novelty then?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah?
Yeah, very good.
I never know when we can call it novelty. Yeah. So, because do we only call them novelties later on when we realize it was a great move, or can we call them novelties right away?
No, we can call them novelties right away. I mean, it can be a terrible move in the opening, but that doesn't matter because if no one has played it before, you get first dibs.
A good novelty or a bad novelty, they're still novelties.
Yeah.
And chess players, they really pride themselves on finding these new ideas that nobody in history has ever thought of before. I've had a few in my time, and I still look back on them with pride.
So the novelty is the one Arjun just made, or was it Magnus?
Magnus.
Okay.
Magnus's little queen move to the side.
But I don't think it was a planned novelty. It's more like a spontaneous decision. Maybe by the speed with which Arjun's been playing, Magnus wanted to throw him off balance. White's queen move now looks a bit odd. This white knight developing to the square in the centre blocks the white queen.
So what could have been Magnus's plan with that novelty then?
Well, I think it's primarily to potentially exchange off dark square bishops. But I say potentially because it has to be done at the right time, because there's no point in doing it now. And the reason why I'm like, don't do it right now, is just because take a look at black's dark square bishop. It's blocked up. It's got pieces in the way.
Yeah, so it looks like the queen and bishop are lining up so that you could initiate this trade, but as Jovanka says, it doesn't look too impressive. Instead, pushing this pawn forward is another secondary idea behind the queen stepping to the square. Ideally, the queen doesn't want to get in the way of her rooks. It looks a bit clumsy, but she does support this pawn push. And yeah, this pawn structure now, it's reminiscent of a queen's gambit. White having 2 pawns in the center, black just solidifying. It's like a Slav type of defense. And usually white is the one who holds the key. White can decide when to capture or when to push forward. Black doesn't really want to capture himself in the current position, for example, now, because the white queen will spring forward and white has extra space due to this pawn in the center. So very tense right now. White has the bishop pair. White has slightly more space, as we mentioned, but black is rock solid. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Erigaisi maybe push this pawn forward, gain a bit of space on this flank. Black is slightly cramped. Maybe the black knight can jump into the center at some point. Often black just pushes this pawn to create kind of a triangle formation in the center. Lots of options.
Looks good. I've also seen, maybe not in this exact position, but I also seen black move the knight over to the b6 square just to ask white, what are you going to do? Are you going to capture pawns? Are you going to push forward? Just to determine the pawn structure.
Yeah, so that one might appear later as well. And okay, he uses the queen on this square. Also very active, and white needs to somehow get these rooks into the game. To be honest, I slightly prefer white's position just because long-term bishop pair, if it does ever open up, there we go, one of the white rooks does centralize. Yeah, if it ever opens up, Magnus, with his great air quality that we see in front of us, he will be the favorite. But yeah, still early days.
Yeah, early days, but a lot of excitement. I'm super enthusiastic about this particular matchup, youth against old, although it's not really old, it's like Magnus Carlsen, the champ. But anyway, we love it here when everyone at home joins in the fun and joins in the excitement. So please share with us your thoughts, send us your pictures, your photos, your questions, and you can do all this by tweeting us using the hashtag #ChessChamps. We'll try and feature them on the show.
Yeah.
It's going to be so much fun.
We love your questions, especially.
Yeah. I love it when the viewers get very creative and send us their funny pictures.
Absolutely.
I still giggle when I remember that competition about Simon.
Yeah, a picture to impress Simon Howell.
Yes.
I said Simon Howell again. What's wrong today?
If me and Simon ever have babies, Simon Howell.
that's the second time today I said Simon Howell. I have no idea why.
Simon Cowell, media mode.
Aha. Maybe I was watching, maybe I was dreaming about, what is it, American Idol? X Factor is Simon Cowell, yeah. Yeah, but do tweet your questions and comments, you guys. A queen move by Arjun here.
A queen move, and it's actually the same idea that Jovanka mentioned, just in a different way. Essentially, black is putting pressure on white's c-pawn. The black queen is looking at the c4 square, the black central pawn looking at that square as well. So he's just saying to Magnus, it's your choice. You make the decision. I want you to clarify the center. It's going to be relatively blocked up. I guess Magnus doesn't really want to trade pawns in the middle of the board. And if he doesn't, then he has a problem to deal with. There is a pawn attacked after all. So, yeah, very logical move. I like what Arjun's doing in general.
And I think, I mean, definitely this is two generations. Obviously, Arjun, a teenager, Magnus Carlsen, 31 years old. How long do you think, David, Magnus Carlsen will be the #1 player in the world? How many years do you give him? Ish. Do you give him like 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 5?
Not 20.
Not 20, OK.
I think that will be difficult to keep up. The youngsters coming through now are just too strong. I don't think they'll let him kind of rest in peace. Not rest in peace, rest peacefully at the top of World Chess. It's been a long tournament. He'll rest peacefully at the top of the standings, I meant. But yeah, the youngsters, they're coming up to kill the king, and they'll want to take that spot as #1. I do feel Magnus still has many years left in him at the top level, but I mean, the fact that he stepped aside from the World Championship, there are other small factors as well. Remember, Garry Kasparov retired at, I think, 43. Kramnik retired at 41. So there are indicators that it's not easy to go on at your peak beyond the age of 40. There are exceptions, of course, but it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, like Ivanchuk.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, just recently, Federer announced his retirement. I think he lost his game yesterday.
He did lose, but it was, I saw it when I came home and I just cried and cried. Yeah, that interview afterwards. So my.
I did.
And Nadal, both crying.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Nadal was sobbing. Yeah. That was two soft men.
But it's nice to see, it shows how much it means to them. And I'm sure the day Magnus retires, he'll shed a tear or two as well.
I think you two will be the Federer and Nadal. You'll be on the side there, David, just sobbing when Magnus retires.
I think so, because I don't recall crying, but I remember feeling tremendously sad when Garry announced his retirement.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I don't know why, but he's kind of captivated my imagination. So that when he announces that he's playing again, just in some kind of Fischer Random tournament, I'm like, oh, he's going to win. Yeah. He's got that much of an aura around him. Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't quite go so well, but yeah.
It's just difficult. I guess life gets in the way. You just don't have as much time when you're slightly older to study as much as maybe some of these young players do. I mean, you still have the understanding. Plenty of these slightly older players, they still have the energy, everything else, but it's difficult. And it does seem to be a young person's game now in this Generation Cup. Meanwhile, Magnus just shuffling his queen up 1 square. I mean, it's so tense right now. It's really hard to call. Again, I still prefer white because he has the potential long-term of the bishop pair. But Erigaisi's dancing around with his knights. I like this last move.
I like this last move as well. It's asking questions. What are you going to do with a pawn that's under fire? And Magnus can either choose to defend it with a rook or potentially a pawn, or determine the pawn structure. It's really cagey at the minute. Both sides kind of prodding each other, trying to establish a plan. Also, that knight doesn't need to stay the knight that just moved to the d6 square doesn't have to stay on that square. It can actually maneuver itself to the f5 square and start looking at the bishop. And that's probably going to be unpleasant as well.
Yeah. For example, you mentioned that this pawn structure, I mean, there's a bit of pressure here. If white just defends, if white just protects things, this is very awkward, actually. You'd never want to allow the capture of your bishop, not just because you want to keep your bishop pair, but because this would wreck the white pawn structure if the black knight captures. You can't step back now because the knight would take this pawn. You could step forward, but the bishop is not entirely safe here either. At the right moment, I'm not sure when, the black knight might come round and attack your piece. And yeah, I mean, black is still rock solid. So Magnus, I'm expecting him to probably go for a move like this one, just to bring his rook across to defend this pawn. But in the current position, maybe you could make an argument for opening up one file. You could certainly make an argument for stepping forward. I know you would, you like these types of pawn structures if white can keep control, Jovanka.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's a big if, because stepping forward again allows the black knight to come and attack your bishop. But at least you gain a bit of space here. Yeah, it's very difficult. It's decision time for Magnus. The other option, remember, was to take. But, OK, he has stepped forward. This would have opened up a file maybe for the black rooks to occupy. So instead, he does gain space. This is a maximalist approach, I guess. But the problem is the center will be blocked now. Look at these pawns, and these pawns, they'll be locked up. And that tends to favor knights rather than bishops.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll see Arjun jump to this square, put some pressure on this piece, and back to manoeuvring. It feels like they're definitely just the calm before the storm in this final. It's not what I expected. I thought we'd be seeing very, very aggressive chess from the off, but I think that will be ahead. That might not necessarily be in this game. Magnus, meanwhile, laughing to himself. We've seen this before.
Yeah.
Usually a bad sign.
Yeah, he doesn't always look fully focused.
No.
Occasionally some mistakes after he starts laughing.
Well, we were critical, I remember, during the FTX Cup, you know, because he just kept laughing and we were like, oh, he's not focused. But then he ended up winning the tournament.
True.
So I'm going to like reel in my words and just say, you do you, Magnus. But if you blunder, I'm blaming the laughter.
We're so fickle here. We'll change our mind depending on the result.
We can be.
It's good to see people happy, though.
I agree.
Whoever player it is.
Yeah.
Definitely. And talking about happiness, Adair G asks us a question. He asks, David, myself, I'm going to also throw the question to you, Kaja.
Okay.
Were you good at maths when you were in primary and high school?
Kaja first.
It was my favorite subject, but it doesn't mean I was very good at it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I liked that it was, I liked that because I would be very suspicious of my teachers when they gave me grades. So, you know, in the other subjects, you know, it was a little bit up to the teacher what they thought about, you know, the essay I wrote. But in math, I knew it was the right or the wrong answer. Yeah. So that's why I liked it.
Yeah, the reason I laughed earlier is because I hated it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I think I had one nice maths teacher ever, but the rest, I don't know. They would always be a bit strict with me after I come back from a chess tournament. Often I would disappear for a week or two at a time to play a tournament. I come back and they're like, you missed all your exams, you missed the classes, you know, you need to catch up, you need to do the next 50 pages and I mean, I was okay at it. I was never amazing, though. So I never saw the correlation between chess and maths. It just felt like a chore to me. I never really understood why I would need certain equations to survive in life.
Yeah, I think that's right, though.
Yeah, well, I wasn't. I was good in primary school because it was mainly about memorization. Everyone can do that, so I was good at that part. When it came to the high school part, no, I was terrible.
Like it.
But having said that, I did do some work in my house that involved us sitting down and using the pi formula.
Finally it came in handy.
Well, I didn't remember. I had to Google it, and it didn't even occur to me until we sat there and like, oh my goodness me, like 20 minutes later, we can use pi to work this out. So yeah, there are some uses.
How many decimal points of pi do you know?
I can
Just
only
3.
do 2. Oh, you can 3?
No, just 3.14. That's it. And then
3.142 something.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, impressive.
But meanwhile, the game's still locked up. We mentioned that Magnus closed the pawn structure. And, OK, the black knight didn't go to the square we expected, but Arjun has solidified the black knight on this queen side by pushing a pawn further down the board. So gaining some space. I'm really not sure what black's doing with his queen, with his knight, but they look nice and pretty for now. It's just whether Magnus can create any play maybe on the other side. There we go. Tempting fate, just on the other side of the board. This is actually very logical in strategy terms. The black queen is far, far away from her king. She can't really ever jump over to the defense, so why not attack on this right half of the board? Yeah? What do you think, Jovanka?
It's a pawn push.
I
approve. I love it. Take as much space as you possibly can. But remember, I love that phrase, David. I'm going to use it. With great space comes great responsibility, because, you know, there are certain squares that White has given up, chiefly the e4 square. So as long as Magnus controls that and has the ability to protect his king, I'm a big fan of what Magnus is doing.
Yeah, this is a big hole in Magnus's position, but for now it's guarded by the bishop. If the black knight could jump in safely, it would be a bit scary. And yeah, like you say, Jovanka, at the moment, okay, Magnus with his pawn push, he's clearly going for the black king. He's going to throw lots of pawns forward, but yeah, the downside, this white king is a bit airy. It definitely feels to me like Arjun needs to be doing something with this queen, with this knight. He can't just leave them there forever on the wrong flank, because they're not going anywhere. And does that mean at some point he prepares pushing this pawn? I don't think you can do it yet. You want to break down White's pawn chain, especially the head of the pawn chain, clamping down on the black position. You want to kind of play this move, but the pawn next to it might fall. So could you prepare this move, perhaps? Could you start rerouting this knight back somewhere? I'm not really sure exactly where it's going. I just don't see how to get the queen in the game. And okay, Arjun first pushes forward. I'm expecting Magnus to lock up this side of the board. You never really want to take this pawn and give the black queen a reason to be excited. So yeah, I'm expecting Magnus to step forward 1 square, maybe 2 squares. Not sure which one appeals to you, Jovanka.
I think moving at 1 square.
2 squares might allow the black queen to sneak in here, offering a queen exchange. I don't think White wants to exchange queens. The more pieces that disappear, the more that responsibility of the space might become a burden. Okay, he does push forward 1 square. Logical.
And the move that I was considering here for Black was actually to step the queen 1 square forward. And with the same idea of actually just trading off queens, I feel that White's potential attack on the right side is going to be a bit dangerous. So trade off queens, follow my motto. But instead, Erigaisi just centralised his rook.
Yeah, I guess maybe there was a small threat of White pushing this pawn forward. If the black rook wasn't here, then the black knight would not be able to use this square. Now it is possible. For example, if the knight is attacked, the black knight can retreat safely. Otherwise, the black knight would have been lacking any good squares. So it makes some sense what he's done, but I prefer your move as well, Jovanka, if it was possible. Clock times, Magnus is actually 2 minutes down on the clock. Erigaisi with a lead there. And this pawn structure looks nice for White visually, but actually you've lost control over lots of light squares, so I'm not sure Magnus will want to commit yet to pushing all his pawns to dark squares. Will we see this pawn push forward, maybe even this pawn push forward? Will the white rooks start to improve? This one is probably the worst piece in the board, so you could make an argument for stepping this white rook forward somewhere, I'm not sure where, and then swinging the other one across. Or, okay, it's the worst piece, so he improves it to a different square. He just brings it across.
The move that I was attracted to, it can still be done, is actually sliding the bishop 1 square forward, the light squared, and then the king stepping up and swinging the rooks over in honour of our good friend Simon.
Oh, Simon would love this, Jovanka. We're missing him here in the studio today, but he would be proud. Slide the rook across and then push Harry the h-pawn up the board and go for the black king. But yeah, Magnus didn't go for that one, and instead, in the current position, we see the black knight drop back. Again, Arjun's doing everything right. He's cramped, lacking space for black, so he's trying to trade off pieces.
Yeah, only one piece so far has left the board.
Yeah. One set of knights, well, 1 knight for white, 1 bishop for black. That, I mean, that just increases the kind of tense nature of the position. The more we continue with this, and okay, he steps the other bishop back. This is a clear indicator that Magnus wants to step the white e-pawn forward 2 squares and just blow open the position. He just wants to push all the pawns forward, and it makes sense. He has the bishop pair.
All right, a bishop pair, and we are missing Simon in the studio, but he's enjoying himself at the good night. And is the watch party started, Simon? Do you have some Magnus fan there with you?
Certainly do, and I'm going to say a quick cheers, first of all. So we got lots of people here. We can see just like watching the chess. We got you on the screen, which is obviously a little bit strange. And people have certainly come down here just to watch the chess. And let's see if we can ask someone about who they think is going to win, right? So we're in the lovely good night. We've got 2 lovely people playing chess here. Hi to both of you. And I know you came down to watch the chess. So first of all, who do you think is going to win?
Magnus, of course.
Of course. Are you Norwegian by any chance?
No.
You're not Norwegian?
No.
Oh, where are you from?
From the US.
From the US? Okay, and you're supporting Magnus? Yes. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And who do you think's going to win?
Also Magnus, yeah.
Okay, so you're both big Magnus fans, right? So.
Yes.
Oh, he's got it for sure.
And who's winning this game?
I'd say him.
You say him. Okay. So maybe more beer. If you have more beer, you've got to level the playing field a little bit there. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's awesome. So the watch party has started. We've got the room here. Still lots of action going on. So if you're around, come down, enjoy the fun, have some beer, watch the match. And I'm enjoying myself here as well, as you can probably tell.
Yeah. Oh, very enjoyable. Thank you, Simon. Even people from the US down at the Good Night to follow this first day in the final. Best out of 4 rapid games, either a winner or they can, of course, also tie this first match. The second match will be played tomorrow. Again, 4 rapid games to decide the second match as well. And if they are tied after these 2 matches, then Blitz tie breaks. The bar is over to Magnus' side in this first game. Does this look like a game that will end up with a winner, or is it too early to say because so many pieces on the board?
Yeah, it's too early. We're very far from a draw, which is good news. Lots of fight ahead. One aspect we haven't mentioned so far is the clock. And I think this might be a continual theme throughout today and tomorrow in the final. Arjun, he's super quick, super confident. He's got a 4.5-minute time advantage almost. And there we go, the bar slides down.
Yeah, I mean, I was very surprised. Actually, I'm still surprised at the bar's movement now. But, I mean, it really liked White's position. Yeah. And I didn't... OK, yes, it's very pleasant, I admit that. But is it really as high as the bar was thinking? And now it says that Black is slightly better. I don't really understand why. I mean, is it because he has a breakthrough right now? Is it because he's going to kick the knight away?
I am confused as well, Jovanka, I've got to admit. The fact that the bar moved so much means that there's something good here for Black, but I'm struggling to see it. So there is a threat on the board. Maybe we can try to get to the bottom of this mystery. There is a threat of bishop takes rook. This is very natural by White. To me, this was maybe one of the first things I would have looked at as well. In every position, we want to look for forcing moves, checks, captures and threats. This is a big threat. The rook can't move. The rook here is tied down defending its knight. Therefore, either you have to block this attack somehow. There's only 2 or 3 ways to do that. Or you have to kind of counterattack somehow. I don't see any counterattacks. If you move your knight out and take the white knight, maybe, first of all, White could just recapture back on this square with a pawn, say, for example, this way. But maybe White can get away with taking the black rook. It gets a bit complicated around here. The knight could move back, the white bishop is attacked, it would retreat, and now this pawn in the center would fall. But, OK, Arjun pushes this pawn. Another move potentially on the radar was this pawn push.
Yeah, I was looking at that, I thought I was asking too much.
Yeah, I mean, this is very difficult. Without the evaluation bar, I don't think anyone would even consider this move. The whole idea would be that if White takes with this pawn, suddenly the knight is loose in the middle of the board. There would have been an exchange here, and White's pawn structure is ruined. Doubled pawns, just everything weak. And the other idea, I guess, was after bishop takes, there would have been a pawn push hitting 2 pieces, and still super complicated. We can't blame Arjun for playing the safe move, but the evaluation bar goes up again for White. So maybe a small missed opportunity for him. Pushing this pawn, and White retreats. This is instructive for Magnus. No exchanges, because after the retreat, Black's piece is far more passive than White's piece. I think that's a good thing to remember for everyone at home. Don't go for exchanges unless they're forced, or if they improve your position, if your piece is worse than your opponent's piece. And here it's clear that White's knight is better than Black's. OK, Magnus pushes forward 1 square. I was expecting him to maybe try and push forward 2 squares, open it up, but he's happy to step forward. Maybe one idea is to retreat the bishop with a pin on this diagonal, or maybe even to line it up with the white queen on this diagonal. OK, meanwhile, Erigisi pushing his queen forward, and Magnus does indeed retreat his bishop. It's very tense. Who do you prefer here, Jovanka?
Magnus's position, I mean, it looks overwhelming, actually, because I'm looking at the black knight on b5, and it's completely misplaced. And his position is so cramped. It feels like Magnus is in suffocation mode. He's that python wrapping around the victim, squeezing him from space. I mean, also, I love this little bishop move that he's made because it allows the queen to swing all the way over to the right side if needed. Yeah. And here it comes. Grab, operation grab as many squares as possible is on the board.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? You have to step up with that pawn. You can't take that pawn.
You have to try and block things as black, but then the black knights... Normally, knights love blocked positions, right? But black's knights are just terrible right now. They're on poor circuits. They can't really go anywhere. OK, he tries to improve this knight, but it did just come from the square 3 moves ago. Yeah, it feels like Erigaisi's just playing a bit too passive. Maybe it's just the nerves of a first major final on the tour. He's played big tournaments before, but when has he ever played a kind of 2-day match against the world champion? Yeah. First time ever. And OK, an exchange of pawns. And I'm expecting Magnus not to trade off pieces. That consistent kind of theme over the last few moves is keeping the tension, trying to play for the maximum. Maybe this white bishop on the edge of the board will come the whole way back. Yeah. Gain time against the black queen on the other side.
I think the same. I think he's either going to do that or he's perhaps going to swing the queen across to the right and say, well, if the trade is happening, it's on my terms.
Yep, white's queen can be improved. So Magnus down to 4.5 minutes. Erigaisi putting some pressure on the clock. Okay, he does exchange off, slightly surprising to me, but maybe he thought that the black dark squared bishop was his remaining defender. The black dark squared bishop was a good defender of his king. And now Magnus has got a huge threat.
Big threat, right? We have to get the board up. It's a demolition job, Kaja.
Yeah, for example, if black plays on the wrong side of the board, this queen is misplaced, remember? If she tries to, for example, improve herself, the threat is along this diagonal. And white is threatening to take this pawn, winning a pawn. If the bishop is captured, now this check wins on the spot because the knight will fall next. The black king is devoid of any shelter and game over. So Erigaisi did indeed defend against that threat. He brought his rook forward 1 square. This is a trick. Now, if you capture, same thing. It's a check. It looks deadly, but you can meet this with a block. And actually, the white queen is pinned to her king. White would lose. So Magnus, instead, just sidesteps. It's just so calm. It just all looks so logical in hindsight, Magnus's moves, but they're not easy to find at first. And the whole idea is, firstly, now, again, this threat is re-established, now that the white king isn't on that G-line. But also, talking of that G-line, the white rook is ready to come and put more pressure on this pawn as well. We might just be seeing a big breakthrough any moment on this square.
Yeah. I mean, it just looks like Arjun is just completely helpless. I mean, Magnus has not put a foot wrong, apart from that one tiny moment. Yeah. And
what was that tiny moment? The bishop move?
Yeah, there was a bishop move.
But it seems like after that, that must have been part of his genius plan.
It's like it's just been relentless. You know, he said, well, you know, look at the black queen, look at the knight, you're offside, and I know exactly what I want to do. The pawn structure tells me to initiate operations against the black king. And now he just, as David's highlighting, the knight can step forward into an outpost. And by an outpost, I mean a square that cannot be attacked by a pawn.
Do you think it was part of his genius plan, David?
Yeah, I mean, the move we showed earlier with, if we just backtrack quickly on the analysis board, the move we saw earlier with white planting his bishop on the side of the board, it's very, very strong from a human point of view. But we saw the evaluation bar drop. A computer would spot that this pawn push is actually quite good for black, but it's just not a human move. It's incredibly tough. It requires so much calculation, so much judgment, and I don't think we can blame either Magnus or Arjun for not even considering that. I don't think I would have considered it unless I saw the evaluation bar, which we did. So, yeah, I mean, that has led to the current position. If we go back to the current position, and yeah, I'm expecting Magnus. Firstly, he's calculating whether he can break through immediately by sacrificing a bishop. The whole idea would be to try and break through to the black king. This looks pretty scary for black. Black's king is out in the open, but black can temporarily block with his rook, maybe with his knight. So it's not game over yet. That's why Magnus is trying to work this out. If he can't checkmate immediately by sacrificing on the square, he will just continue building up, and that has been his strategy. He'll bring his knight into the center, and yeah, you mentioned the word outpost, Jovanka. This is like the dream. This is like the definition of outpost. It should be in the dictionary, because the white knight is supported by both its pawns, and it can never, ever be challenged by any of black's pawns. It can only ever be traded off by the black knight, but I don't think black can move his pieces away from the king. This just looks deadly. A fourth piece attacking this one pawn. Something's got to give. I mean, what is this queen doing on this side of the board? It's in no man's land. It's in Siberia somewhere, just it's basically not participating in the game.
Could he, obviously Magnus in the moon, but could Arjun just move it back, get it back into play somehow?
Yeah, I think you're right, Kaja. Magnus, okay, he pushes his rook forward. He's just going to add pressure by bringing his other rook in, and surely now, or at least now on the next couple of moves, Black has to bring his queen back. He has to hope that the queen can somehow defend along this line. She's still a pretty bad piece.
She is a very bad piece. I do feel that Arjun is just forced to wait. And, OK, I like this move by Arjun, you know, move the knight in front of the king. Potentially the knight can move to more active posts, but unlikely in the near future.
I mean, look at Magnus. He's not even trying to disguise his intentions. He's lined up his bishop, his queen, his two rooks, all against this one pawn. And next move, I have no doubt, Magnus wants to bring his knight in, for example, to this square. And every single white piece is hitting this pawn. At some point, there will be a sacrifice, and it's likely to be deadly. So the evaluation bar, still liking Magnus's position. Doesn't say it's winning yet, but it's very good. Very difficult for Black.
Yeah, very, very tough position for Arjun. And whilst we're waiting for Arjun to find a defensive move, we have some more questions from our viewers. Nicola asks us, will Magnus play the candidates to try to get back his title in the next few years? What do we think?
Maybe that's part of his plan.
It would be funny.
Yeah, well,
if he
it's known to be the toughest tournament in chess, right? To play the candidates. Maybe he needs to challenge.
I mean, he won it the only time he played in 2013, but he was a bit lucky.
Yeah.
He was very lucky to win it in 2013. It would be cool maybe in like 20 years if Magnus enters the candidates, wins it, gets a match for the title again. It's like the old man, come back.
Yeah. And says, no, don't want to play. And then plays again in the candidate. Maybe they'll go, no, Magnus, no more.
It'll be like Magnus and a bunch of like teenagers just in the candidates. Yeah, it would be cool, but I think it's not on his radar for now. Not in his plans.
No. No, on his radar now is, of course, winning this tournament and then to play, hopefully, in the next Meltwater Champions Chess Tour event. And then there is a Fischer Random World Championship coming up, I would say, late October.
Yeah, I think October 25th to 30th.
And he is definitely playing that in Iceland, 50 years after Bobby Fischer became the world champion in Iceland. They are arranging the Fischer Random World Championship, a genre in chess that Bobby Fischer invented, 960 chess. So that's going to be super cool. Magnus will be there, Wesley So, and then I don't think we know many other players. Some Icelandic grandmaster.
Yeah, there's an Icelandic player. I think there are qualifying events right now. There might even end up being players like Nakamura and others who have been trying to qualify, playing there. It will be really fun, actually, and just to watch. But also Magnus, that's the one crown that's eluded him throughout his career. He wants to be world champion, and meanwhile, he's broken through.
He has broken through. He has sacrificed that piece, and now Arjun's king is in dangerous territory. Will it survive? It looks unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just I don't really see a threat right now, but it's a long-term attack.
Yes.
How are you going to stop the teamwork of the white queen, her rooks, the white knight coming in?
You can't stop anything. And I mean, if you're feeling sadistic, you can even, once you've introduced all your pieces into attack, you can just advance the H pawn.
Yeah.
Nothing to be done. Gosh.
Black can barely move, actually. Black just has to sit and await his fate. Yeah, I mean, this has just been a beautiful strategic game. Just slow build up, blocking things up, putting pieces on good squares, and then the moment comes, crash through. And yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for Arjun. I don't think anyone could have saved this game. After Magnus got the opening or type of opening he wanted, it's just been one-way traffic. Okay, Arjun bringing his knight in, Magnus trying to trade off those knights.
Yeah.
And the white rook is entering the battle.
And this trade was forced because Magnus had a deadly checkmating threat with the queen on h7. And still, Arjun, although he's traded, he's still completely tied down. He doesn't have a single active move. I mean, all he has to do is just shuffle his queen and rook and hope for the best. And all the while, I'm thinking, hang on, isn't there a deadly threat of sliding the rook to the h line?
Yeah, there is. You're right, Jovanka. If Black just loses a move, then this is deadly. You're pinning everything on this file, and one check is going to tip the black defences over the edge. There's literally no way to stop this. If the black rook moves, for example, this is a check. The king is forced to shuffle to the side. You give another check. The king moves, and it's checkmate in 2. The knight finally drops. The king is forced forward, and look at this. The 3 white pieces deep in the black camp have checkmated the black king. And how do you stop this in the current position? The only way I see is
try and trade off rooks
forward. But maybe Magnus just says, I don't care. You just step back 1 square and you do the same again. You use this square this time to break through on the H file, and it's the idea of sliding the rook across and then this check. And there we go. It's on the board. Magnus, again, last move, doesn't exchange pieces. And no trade of rooks. White's attack would suddenly die if you trade pieces off. So he steps back, and this looks winning. Moves the rook across 1 square.
Yeah.
Looks like game over.
It is game over, because I think that Knight's days are numbers. OK, well, Magnus...
being flashy.
He is being flashy. He don't care. He's not going to go straight for the kill. He's going to grab as much material as possible. Enjoy the journey, they say.
Yeah, and he took a pawn on this square. The knight cannot take the white queen because the knight is pinned. Black's knight is pinned to its king. It's illegal, unfortunately, to go and capture that white queen.
And a big threat on the board of actually playing rook takes knight. I think this is a killer, actually.
Yeah, and there we go. I think Erigaisi has resigned, facing a deadly attack from the world number 1.
Wow, what a start to the final. Magnus Carlsen, he wins a dominant game here with the white pieces in his hunt to reach 2,900 on the tour. A great game by the world number 1, a great exchange in this one as well. So here is today's FTX exchange.
And the key to Magnus's victory in game 1 of the final was not exchanging pieces early in the game, keeping the tension. He had more space on the board. His opponent's pieces were cramped, so he didn't trade off when Erigaisi was trying to initiate those. Instead, he saved his pieces for later. He maneuvered. All of the white pieces are on their perfect squares right now. The bishop, the queen, the 2 white rooks, they're all staring down at this 1 pawn. So here, his exchange was actually a sacrifice. He gave up the white bishop. He sensed that the time was now. And after giving up his bishop, he swooped in with his queen. There's simply nothing black can do. There's too much pressure. The black king is doomed long-term, and the long-term attack actually turned into a short-term finish. Black tried to step forward, and this final exchange, getting rid of black's only active piece, was the killer. White steps forward with his knight, trading those pieces off, and as we saw, deadly threat of the rook sliding across, the queen coming to give a check. Black tried to prevent this by swapping rooks. Again, no exchange for black. He needs to keep the attacking pieces on, and the final blow. Queen takes pawn, making use of a pin along the g-file and also along this diagonal. Erigaisi resigned, simply no way to defend this attack.
And he will have to make a comeback. In 13 minutes, game 2 will start. Erigaisi will have the white pieces in that one. We're going to build up to that, but first, let's hear from our much appreciated partners.
Air quality isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about chess and esports, but it affects our focus, decision-making, health, sleep, and more. What's in the air you breathe? Find out with AirThings.
I think for me, She Moves Us is about the passion for life. It's about doing things that light up our mind, light up our soul, light up our brain, and in the process, hopefully light up the world and give motivation to others as well to be able to do the same. I think there are so many iconic women in the world who've raised the bar and really shown that it's okay to break conventions and it's okay to break norms. And yes, it's not easy and it's hard, but it's also so rewarding. To be completely honest, it's a lot to do with how I feel about the game that drives me. Definitely seeing the women around me in my personal space go after the things that drive them definitely makes me feel like I can do that as well. The one thing that I learned along the way would be that you don't have to live up to the expectations of others. I think you have to do things which exceed your own expectation to build a world around yourself that you feel proud of. And that's the only thing that is your responsibility, to create the life that you're proud of. For me personally, I would say a strong woman is somebody who has complete belief in herself, and no matter how many people question her, how many people try to put some kind of self-doubt in her, whatever the circumstances is, there is an ultimate belief in herself and her goals, and she's able to take on the challenges, whether it's external, whether it's internal, and go forward with, once again, the life that she wants to create. If I had to talk to my younger self, I would probably go and give her a big hug and tell her that it's going to be amazing in the most difficult times and just keep going. The only thing that I would like to say to people who have a passion for something which is not what the society or the general norm or the general structure is or what people expect out of you, and you have a path that you want to take because it makes you happy, just keep going on it. And believe in yourself. It's going to get tough. It's definitely going to get hard. It's not going to be easy. But in the end, it's going to be 100% rewarding.
we just race to the line. Yeah. I'm definitely gonna crush it. Set, go!
going.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
Seriously? Checkmate. Aim chess is an intelligent system that analyzes your game, prevents mistakes, and develops recommendations for improving your skill. Phew.
Welcome back. It's the first day in the final of the Julius Baer Generation Cup, and after one game, Magnus Carlsen is up by 1 point, winning a dominant game in the first round. In 5 minutes, Arjun Erigaisi will have the white pieces and will try to make a comeback. There is a watch party happening in Oslo today, a meetup, and the Champions Chess Tour have teamed up. And at this watch party down at the Good Night, Simon, how's the mood down there now?
Surprisingly enough, the mood is getting better. Maybe just for me, that is, but for everyone else as well. And yeah, we're at a watch party, one of these amazing things that happens in 300 places around the world. And we're actually here with someone who's for the watch party. So do you want to introduce yourself? And you came here for the watch party?
I did. My name is Amelia. I'm from the US, but I live in Vienna.
Awesome. And you came for the watch party, is that right? To play chess or to watch the big guys on the screen?
So I'm actually a chess historian, and so I came to kind of see what the culture was and to watch the players and see what was going on here in Oslo.
Awesome. So good. And are we going to play a game then?
I guess we are, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to try playing a game, 30 seconds each. Okay, are you ready? It's going to be quite quick. It's going to be fast.
Yeah, we'll do this. Okay.
Before we start, one of us has got to be Magnus and the other one's got to be Hans Niemann. Would you prefer to be Magnus or Hans?
Magnus.
Looks like I'm going to be Hans. Okay. I won't mention anything about beads. Let's start. Okay, let's go. Right.
Sorry.
Wow, that's okay.
I'm nervous.
Oh, we're getting time added on every move.
Are we?
We are. Okay, you got to press the clock. Magnus would always press the clock. He's a professional. You don't play with clocks?
No, I only play complicated.
Okay, I think I've got you flustered now.
Yeah.
I think I've got you flustered, so I'm going to bang the clock. I'm going to intimidate you. Careful of the queen. Oh! What do we reckon of that move, people?
Oh, that was a blunder, I think.
No, yeah, I'm very nervous.
There's no pressure whatsoever. Do you agree?
No, I feel like there's a lot of pressure.
Now, before we go on, are you enjoying yourself here?
I am.
And do you know when you play blitz chess, it's really important to press the clock? Did you know about that? Well done. Well, look, we're clearly having a lot of fun here. I just realized the clock is totally messed up because we're getting 30 seconds always. So I'm going to have to offer you a draw. Would you?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Now, before we go, I'm going to have to ask you, and everyone else, if anyone's got opinion, what do we think? I know you're a chess historian, about the whole cheating. Now, I know I'm putting you on the spot. What is your opinion about the whole cheating scandal? Because we're here on the ground with beer. Okay.
It reminds me a lot of Bobby Fischer when he accused the Soviets of cheating in Sports Illustrated, and Bobby Fischer, ended up being right. So take that for what you will.
Okay, there's some strong opinions here. Can I just see like some hands in the air? Now, I'm going to say either Magnus or Hans. Team Magnus, hands in the air. Team Hans, put your hands in the air. Okay, right, back to the studio.
I like that, Simon. And obviously, it's in Oslo, so we could expect a big team Magnus support right there. And how cool to see a chess historian from Vienna, Simon's favorite place in the world, Vienna, where he played a tournament. And you said that, Jovanka, we don't often see female chess historians. Really cool.
We don't, you know, and so it's great to actually see one in the flesh. And you know, obviously she knows a lot of stuff, and it's great that she's here in Oslo in the chess pub.
Definitely.
And yeah, also from Vienna.
Yeah.
Town Hall.
Vienna Town
Hall, Simon's favourite place.
The word we heard the most this tournament, Vienna Town Hall. All right, well, the players, they're not sitting in the Vienna Town Hall, they're sitting in their homes. It looks like Magnus Carlsen is sitting in his bedroom, actually. Many people have commentated on that during this tournament, and he is in the lead. Ergaisi now heading into a game with the white pieces, and all of our experts have said that this is where he will be dangerous with the white pieces. So what kind of a genius plan will he have against Magnus Carlsen when he has to make a comeback at some point? Arjun Ergaisi, he is focused and he is ready. What do you expect, David? Is he one of those players with the same kind of opening? Or should he play anything?
Yeah, Arjun, he's got a really wide opening repertoire, actually, for someone so young. Usually when you're younger, you specialize in one area and then you slowly add new openings, but Arjun can play anything. Okay, it's the Italian game. So this one could get very complicated later, could get very tense, but we could also see a very kind of slow maneuvering battle. This one is rich and full of possibilities. One thing I was going to say, Arjun, he will find a way to mix things up. He will find a way to be aggressive and kind of complicate things, maybe go for the world champion at some points. That's definitely something he's capable of. Just right now, after that first game, it's important that he just recovers, forgets. And, okay, this last bishop move. We saw him employ Magnus frowning. That's a bit strange. We saw Arjun employ something very similar to this yesterday against Liam Le. And it worked out quite well. Magnus, however, has come prepared. And this bishop move, I've never seen it before.
Database also confirms.
Another novelty.
Another novelty,
Magnus.
yeah.
What could the idea be? It's bizarre, this bishop move. It looks like a really passive square, gets in the way of the black queen. I'm struggling to explain it, to be honest. I guess the only idea is that Magnus doesn't want to commit his king yet. The black king, if it had castled on this right side of the board, might have been weak. We saw that yesterday. Arjun won a very, very nice game against Liam when the black king on the king side got attacked. So maybe Magnus just staying flexible. He's trying to surprise his young opponent.
Yeah, I agree. And I have to say, this move, although it's never been seen before, it does have the approval of the computer. So I am also keeping an eye on the engine that follows Magnus Carlsen. Ceci says only tiny smidgen better for white.
Yeah, I mean, there's zero doubt that this has been cooked up by Magnus Carlsen, his coaches, maybe Peter Heine-Nielsen, somewhere in a lab, just with the strongest engine, strongest computers, so we're not going to criticize that move. It just looks odd from a human point of view. Yeah, the black bishop, normally it develops to maybe challenge the white light square bishop. Normally it comes out to maybe create a pin on white's knight, but just maybe a waiting move, clever waiting move.
Yeah. And I do wonder whether that bishop has maybe got some designs of potentially supporting the advance of the A pawn. I'm like grasping at straws here, David.
Me too. So we should explain that usually in this position, black has two ways of dealing with this pin. Either you just leave it forever, or at some point you push this pawn. And if you push this pawn, white will retreat. The black king now is a bit stuck. If it stays in the centre, it will come under fire. The centre will explode at some point when white pushes forward. And of course, if it castles on this side of the board, for example, now, then the king very open, very weak. And instead, Magnus, he's saying, OK, I'm going to just leave this pin for now. It's not dangerous at the moment. Bringing this bishop out, as we mentioned, usually the black bishop comes to this square. potentially this square. And instead, after developing, as you mentioned, Jovanka, maybe if white's knight brings itself out, for example, Magnus will continue to wait. Maybe Magnus can come and try and hunt down white's light squared bishop. I mean, I'm struggling to find reasons why this is a good move, but I guess he's moved a piece out into the position. If Arjun just waits, I think this might be a good way to ask Magnus what his idea is. What is your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of waiting. I think that's a great suggestion. And what about this idea of moving the rook with the potentially the idea of just pushing forward in the center, saying, hey, you've taken a move with your light square bishop. Instead of getting your king to safety, let's mix things up.
Yeah, I like it. White's rook normally belongs on this square anyway, staring down potentially at the black king. And I wouldn't be surprised if Magnus retreats this bishop. This bishop is about to get hit, so why not step it back? This is what Magnus likes to do in general. He likes to preempt any opening of the center by dropping his bishop back. He did this in the World Championship match in 2021, last year. I still don't really see what this black bishop is doing, but the computer doesn't hate it. Nowadays, the computer's just opened our eyes to all sorts of possibilities that look so unnatural. And maybe the reason he's keeping his king in the center is that he might want to go for this pawn push and an attack just without putting his king on that flank. So I think it's just about flexibility. Like he showed in the last game, he kind of stayed and waited, and then eventually a plan became clear, and he went for it against Arjun. And maybe he's doing the same again.
Yeah. So you expect him not to castle?
At least the fact that he's stopped now for more than 1 minute and he hasn't castled immediately, that makes me think that he's going to delay it as long as possible. Probably commentator's curse, he'll castle now. But I think that's maybe the only way to justify this last bishop move by black. And there we go, he does retreat. He's going to wait. He's going to see what happens first, and then that pawn push, the black g-pawn coming to attack white's bishop on the edge of the board. He might go for that if the moment is right.
Yeah. Do you think that Magnus has, I really hesitate to even suggest this, ideas of maybe even going with his king to the queen side?
I've seen him do that a few times this time, right?
We have. And I don't know, I suspect that he's biding his time, and just when Arjun least expects it, the king switches tack.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to recall this tournament. He won Magnus by castling queenside as black against Aronian. He won by castling queenside as white against Vincent Keimer. I think he won one in the prelims as well. Was it against Arjun? It was against someone. So Magnus, he's definitely trying to throw his opponents off with kind of weird ideas, unseen ideas. And this is the difference maybe between the very elite, the Carlsens of the world, and maybe slightly less kind of elite players. Just they have teams around them who do the homework, who study, who come up with new ideas, creative ideas, and for the rest of us, it's just hard to keep up.
It is definitely hard to keep up, and well, talking about keeping up, we have Magnus Carlsen. He's just used 15 seconds of his time. Eragaisi, well, he's down to 12 minutes. So still lots of time, but it's very clear that Arjun doesn't quite know what plan he should adopt, and he's gone for a flexible approach, just developing the knight. And now, this is the moment I want to see. What is Magnus's big idea? Is he going to attack the bishop? And is he going to castle kingside? Is he going to...
Keep waiting?
Keep waiting? He might do that.
Yeah, it's like that big reveal, and it's not the only big reveal we're waiting for from Magnus.
So they're both kind of waiting for the other player to take the first initiative, the other player to show their plan first.
Yeah, essentially. So the left side of the board is pretty locked down. Neither side's really going to play there. At least white won't play on this left side of the board. The centre, there's a chance for both sides to step forward. More likely that white will step forward. And on this king side, on the right half of the board, it's more likely that black is going to make the move there. So, for example, if black plays on the right side of the board, white will kind of fight in the centre and force things open, and especially while the black king's there, it's not safe. So Magnus may be waiting in that regard. If white pushes in the centre without being provoked, then maybe he weakens himself in the process, and black will happily castle, and then he'll say, OK, you've committed. It's just it's a weird type of waiting game. It just feels like they're both tiptoeing around each other. And I am slightly surprised that Magnus is thinking now, because, as you said, Jovanka, this is like the most natural plan for white. It's the most common type of idea, white moving his knight across. Maybe the white knight will come and sit next to the white king later. Surely now he will reveal his intentions.
Yeah. And whilst we're waiting for the big mystery to be solved, well, we have a few pictures from our viewers. And the first one is from, it's written in Russian. Do any of you know how to read Cyrillic?
Da.
Okay, Niet. No, I also don't know, so I'm sorry. So I'm going to, also known as the Black Widow. And she says, GM1 and GM2 in the making. Oh. Beware of the future Grandmasters. And she's doing some good training there because they're there with the iPad listening to David's commentary, getting that subliminal messaging through. I agree. That is the way forward.
Very cool.
Young. Start them young,
Yeah. Looks like twins as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right, well, they will have a fierce fight growing up. Who will become Grandmaster first?
Oh, yeah. There aren't too many twins that are Grandmasters. I think there's...
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, actually, because you guys were talking about twins yesterday. And I started thinking about that because in other sports, you see a lot of twins.
Yeah.
But...
Ryan brothers in tennis.
Yeah, in handball, which is a big sport in Norway, there's plenty of twins.
Okay.
But in chess, I don't know any, at least.
I mean, Simon mentioned yesterday that from England, there's a couple of twins. One is a Grandmaster, one's an International Master, and there's maybe a couple of cases I know like that, but I can't name it where they're both Grandmasters.
No, I can't either.
Strange.
Unless the Vovok brothers are twins, but I don't think they are.
No, there's a few years between them. The Master of Vasilis brothers, there's a few years between them.
Maybe it's because it gets too competitive. They just get tired of it.
True. Maybe those that we saw today in that picture. Imagine in, I don't know, 12 years' time, they'll both be Grandmasters and we'll look back at this one.
Yeah. 12.
Yeah, 12. That's
10. Yeah. 10, David. You're being too conservative there. No.
I wanted to give them time to enjoy their childhood.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, it does seem like Magnus is in the tank thinking. So I have another chance to share with you another picture, this time from Marco Franius, who says, I have a question, not a picture, but I have a question for everyone in the studio. Kaja, Jovanka and David, what do you choose? A pair of Knights or a pair of Kinder Buenos?
Oh, I'll do the chocolate.
I don't like the Knights. I want the Bishops. I'll choose the Kinder as well.
The Knights.
The Knights.
The Knights. And I'll play you both over the chessboard.
Yeah.
2 Knights alone can't give checkmate.
There we have the picture.
Kinder, yeah, that's one of my favourite chocolates as well. Love it.
Yeah. Problem is that you can eat too many of them.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels like you've eaten nothing at all. Yeah. And here we have, the big plan has been revealed, David.
Yeah, and I've got mixed feelings, to be honest. Firstly, the fact that Magnus spent so much time on this plan when, I mean, if he's done his preparation, if he's played such an odd bishop move and novelty again, then there should be a clear follow-up. And also, it's very, very weakening, and it looks a bit slow to retreat this knight on the last move, but are you more optimistic, Jovanka? You love pushing those pawns?
Yeah, but I love pushing my pawns, but, I'm not really a big risk taker, so I like to do it when I have control of the centre. And here, it feels like the centre could be blasted open at any point of the game. And I just feel this is playing with fire here.
It really is. And Magnus's plan, if given time, if Arjun doesn't push this pawn forward in the centre right now, say he gains some space on the other side of the board, Magnus's idea is to just plant his 2 knights on this side. They're great defenders, but also potentially great attackers. And suddenly these 2 black pawns might start running forward, and they have clear targets. These 2 pieces are misplaced. They're easily hit by these black pawns, and Arjun might well get one of these pieces trapped if he's not careful. So I don't think he should give time to black to just park his knights on this side of the board. I think it feels like now is the moment. You're the one who taught me, Jovanka, the phrase, you go backwards, black has just gone backwards, I go forwards. And the most natural move in the position by a mile is to step forward with the pawn.
Yeah, that is very natural.
Yeah, this stronghold in the centre is attacked 3 times. I don't think black really wants to capture. Firstly, white can establish a nice pawn duo, but also white could consider stepping forward and suddenly look at the white rook, look at the black king. The central line is opening, and black's king will regret not having castled. I'm struggling to understand the idea, to be honest. if white does step forward in the center. Maybe Arjun's also considering a move such as this one, bring the queen out, the queen and bishop together hit this pawn. Also, the queen hits this pawn, so it's kind of a double attack. But it feels a bit wrong to bring the white queen so far away from the action. The action will happen in the center and on the king side, where white's king sits.
Yeah, I agree. Don't touch the queen. I think this is a bit of a no-go area.
Sometimes in chess, you just got to use logic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most logical move. You don't want to play slowly. Your opponent's retreated.
It makes complete sense to me. You know, put pressure on the pawn. And I suspect that Magnus is maybe going to gambit the pawn. OK, and here it comes.
We'll find out. Because this pawn is attacked 3 times. Remember, we don't want to touch it. And Magnus, you're right. He does gambit a pawn. And what is the idea here? White, if he captures this way, I guess black can just take back. Oof. This is already a bit scary, but black can recapture. And if we see another capture by white, another exchange, white has won a pawn, but at the very end, black can play bishop takes pawn check, throwing in a double attack. If white's king steps out into the open and takes, then there will be a knight fork, hitting the king and hitting the bishop. And after this, we count the pieces, after the smoke is cleared, and we see it's level material. Still hard to evaluate, to be honest, but black at least has a very strong knight on an outpost in the center. So we will find out, perhaps, how to evaluate this position. Arjun has taken in the center, and I'm expecting Magnus to recapture.
Cryptic tweet by Peter Heine, Magnus Carlsen's coach, 7 minutes ago. One gets the impression that Ergaisi has not studied the games from the 2018 Under-14 Girls Brazilian Championship. Is Magnus playing something from that?
Wow, quite possibly.
Ah.
Maybe this novelty a few moves ago, bringing this bishop forward, maybe it had been played in that tournament all those years ago.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe, you never know with these things. Maybe it's happened before, but not according to my database. But
I don't know if Under-14 Brazilian Championship would be in databases.
Well, if Heine is quoting it, then it's probably in the mainstream databases, perhaps not on the online database. But, well, then fair play to the 14-year-olds who came up with this devastating ideas. You know, sometimes novelties and good ideas, they happen from anyone, actually. It just takes some people just to sit there and think maybe there's a coach at play. Maybe it's just your moment of genius.
Young players tend to have that creative spark. When you're young, your mind is like a clean slate. You look at the position, you come up with ideas. When you're a bit older, at least myself, I find I just fall into the same patterns and the same ideas, so it's harder to come up with new ideas. Yeah, maybe Magnus taking inspiration from the kids, from the youngsters.
That would be kind of cool. We will ask him about that later. Now, the bar has gone over to his side.
Yeah, it has. And I think he might be getting ready to do what Jovanka mentioned. Castling on the queen side. It looks a bit open for black on that flank. Black has pushed his a-pawn, but if it gains time, if you can go for the white king later, it's going to spice things up for us at least.
It's going to be a lot of fun for us because the margin for error suddenly decreases and, well, yeah, they have to play very accurately. And both sides are going to be attacking the other. And I'm particularly worried for Arjun, actually, because it feels like black's attack is a lot more menacing and maybe easier to play. However, having said that, I really like his last move. Developing the knight, and that knight is getting ready to spring forward. And look at that. On the board, the king has gone to the left.
Yeah, castling on opposite flanks is always fun to watch. It always leads to crazy complications, a race quite often, whose attack is fastest. Like you said, Jovanka, black's attack is already made. Black just pushes pawns towards the white king. Black's knights are sitting there ready as well to join in. No pieces around the black king. The white's pieces take an age to create a threat even. And yeah, I like it as well for black. It's just a trend of the tournament. Magnus kind of delaying castling for as long as possible, and then often just when the opponent least expects it, he runs. And yeah, I want to clarify that tweet from Peter Heine. Maybe we need someone to tweet him back and ask. But I did once walk in on Magnus, and he was looking at, I think it was the Pan American Under-12 Championship or something, and he was just playing through a game. I mean, he just loves watching chess. He's always just on Chess24 looking at the live games. And
wow.
Yeah,
and finding inspiration from kids as well.
Sometimes, yeah. yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. I'll follow the top tournaments, but he follows everything.
So wait 1 second. So Magnus Carlsen, that is, he was the world champion, and you caught him.
I mean, I feel
watching.
Like, I phrased it weirdly, like I caught him doing something naughty. Just there, huddled away.
Under 12.
games.
He was just scrolling through live games, and I asked him what it was, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know. It's like some Pan American junior championship."
Oh my God, that's insane!
Yeah.
That the world champion is not like too big to look at any old tournament. I love that. I think that's just incredible. It just goes to show how passionate he is about the game. And
probably why he is so dominant.
Yeah.
No one watches more chess than him, maybe.
Exactly.
I must confess, I am not looking at the games of the under 10 Pan American or under 14 Brazilian.
Break from chess sometimes.
No.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's just that hunger for knowledge. It's the curious mind. And meanwhile, this game is turning in Black's favour. Look at the evaluation bar. White's last queen move. We actually saw this in the first game, where Magnus also, as White, put his queen on this square. But there was a clear purpose. Here, what is the purpose behind this queen move? It looks frankly bizarre to me. The White queen is not on a kind of open line. She's not on an active square. She's not defending anything, controlling anything.
The only reason I can see for that queen going to that square is that Arjun is worried about the H-pawn moving up the board. And so, therefore, he's preempting that pawn push by preparing perhaps knight takes pawn as a... Or maybe the knight springing forward.
Yeah, maybe the idea is the knight springing forward, hitting the black queen, and after, for example, an exchange, at least now, when Black deals with the problem of his knight, maybe there's an idea of taking this pawn with his queen. But again, I used the word if there 2 or 3 times in that sentence, and that's very relevant because it's a big if. Magnus doesn't necessarily need to push this pawn. For example, I would be tempted to throw the knight in. I would be tempted to maybe move this knight as well over either to take this bishop or to get into the position. This f4 square is often quite juicy for Black. I mean, also, we should point out this pawn I don't think can be captured right now. It looks like Arjun's just set a small trap. Black can go a pawn up, but White will create a discovered attack, move the knight out the way, hitting the black queen, also suddenly hitting the black knight. This would end in disaster. So, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind as soon as Arjun played it was like, was it a mouse slip? Is he just trying to set a kind of a pretty basic trap? I don't think Magnus will fall into that one.
No.
But yeah, maybe like you said, it's just aimed against Black pushing the pawn and trying to trap this White bishop. Maybe he could still consider it, to be honest, but OK, Magnus just takes a timeout, brings his rook across, over-defending his central pawn. A bit odd. I thought the Black rook might start pushing, kind of support a pawn push later, but yeah, still very tense.
Yeah, and I have to say, I really liked your knight sortie, where it came to the edge of the board and found itself on the beautiful f4 square. But that's still very much a possibility. And Magnus instead going for overprotecting his pawns in the centre. But OK, well, this is also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
When one side just lights the match and lets the spark take over.
He's trying to start a fire against that Black king, and I was about to say, I don't think Magnus is going to grab a pawn. He could, at least here, have captured twice. This would have been very tempting to some players, maybe, and gone on a journey with his queen. But, OK, first of all, the queen would have lost protection of this pawn, but even if this pawn wasn't up for grabs, lines would open up towards the Black king. Suddenly, the Black king not feeling comfortable at all. Magnus, therefore, just blocks things up and pushes a pawn. Now it's going to take White a long, long time to create any open lines towards this piece. I'm expecting Arjun at some point, I just don't know when, to jump forward with his knight either this way or this way, because the White knight kind of, it's just blocking things up at the moment. You need to do something active before Black does eventually start pushing these pawns.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really complicated. Who knows? I mean, the evaluation bar can't decide who's better. It's not a draw. It definitely feels like someone's going to attack. And it'll be about who is quicker, who's more dynamic with their plans.
All right, we are waiting for an attack. What a game. Let's take a trip to the good night. What do you think, Simon? Is Magnus winning another one, or can Arjun win this game?
Well, it looks very exciting at the moment, and we've got lots of people watching the game live here, and I think we should go and say hello to the people at the watch party having a look. Obviously, Arjun now is in a critical situation. He needs to bounce back from that first game. And one thing I was chatting to people about is how chess is considered pretty cool in Norway. I mean, everyone knows Magnus Carlsen, so I wanted to just get a couple of people's opinion on Magnus Carlsen. So we'll come over here, and hi there, how are you doing? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, my name is Signe.
And do you know Magnus Carlsen? Do you think he's a cool character?
I'm sorry, but I don't. Because he gets too mad when he loses. But my friend, on the other hand, she thinks him very handsome. And did have a huge crush on him.
And I have to say, you do look awesome. You look like a proper Viking kind of person.
But actually today, I'm not wearing any Viking clothes. Because nothing I'm wearing today is actually Viking. But sometimes I do wear a purse that is a copy from a Viking grave in Sweden.
Brilliant.
Today I'm actually wearing this little purse made by a friend of mine called, in Norwegian you say, she had my small workshop.
That is awesome. And I have to say, there's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of interesting things. And we've got various people, you know, having their opinions on Magnus. And I'm sure there's a lot of Magnus fans here as well, as we know already, and watching the match here live, which is great. It's a very close match at the moment, right in the balance. Not going to win this one. Obviously, if Magnus wins this one, then Arjun is under a lot of pressure. But thank you very much to our special guest as well, who does look fantastic. Yeah. Back to the studio.
How cool, the Vikings in the good night to cheer for Magnus Carlsen, even if she wasn't his biggest fan. Very cool seeing her there with a little bit of a Viking outfit. We're big fans of that. Magnus Carlsen, well, he will be angry if he loses this game. The bar has gone down to the middle. What's happening?
Yeah, simply Arjun's playing some great moves. The White Knight did jump in. We love that F5 square. We've talked about it before. It didn't get captured. White Knight sits there nice and pretty. Instead, the Black Queen retreated, and Arjun now has placed the White Queen on a good square. Magnus there frowning before crossing his arms. That body language tells me he's confused as well. It's hard to evaluate this position. Both sides, look at those 4 knights as well, stacked up, all 4 of them. It's like dominoes somehow. And just like dominoes, things could fall for one side. If they're just tipped over the edge, and right now, bring the rook across. Magnus looks surprised. Do you think he's going to start trying to attack?
I thought he was going to trade, yeah.
White Knight was just too strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is the follow-up? I guess this bishop will be captured.
Yeah, it has to be. Otherwise, although the pause in Aragaisi's thinking means that he's considering perhaps playing. Yeah, it's quite nice. It's connect 4, isn't it? Well, although
haven't seen that before, actually, I must say. But carry on, Jovanka, after the exchange.
Yeah, maybe he's considering rook takes rook.
Okay.
Or could also be, yeah, because he's not replying instantly. He hasn't got pawn takes bishop as a pre-move. Mm-hmm. So it's either that, or he's even thinking about bishop takes knight. But
yeah, I mean, he could be thinking Arjun in this position. Actually, if we go back to the current position on the board about rook takes rook, I was about to say he could possibly be thinking about queen takes pawn as well. And he's done it, going on the counterattack, trying to hit this bishop, counterattacking. Black is a piece up right now, but both black bishops are under fire. This piece and this piece. How do you save them both? Maybe you can't. Wow, do you think Magnus spotted that? It's hard to see, actually.
It wasn't on my radar, so I have to be honest. I was just thinking of the action in the middle of the board. And you're right, nothing to be done. I mean, if you're going to play it safe, you slide the king across to protect the bishop. If you want to, I mean, can you get greedy? I don't see a way.
Yeah, I don't see a way either. It feels like this bishop is the key. You can't let it drop. I mean, if you ever move it, then the white queen is it's got a way in. It's got an entry path towards the black king, so it feels like in this position Magnus has the dilemma to step across with your king. Again, just like Erigaisi on the last move, you could maybe take the rooks off first, but okay, he does this, and then now surely he has to step his king across. You have to keep this bishop. You can't let the white queen in towards your king. It's still quite a solid setup, actually. These 2 pieces defend pretty well. Okay, he does this, And now white regains the piece. So white has actually won a pawn in the process by using his queen and grabbing this pawn. Magnus, he's trying to compensate for that by going forward. This game is surely going to end with a winner. I just don't know who, but it just looks like chaos. The knight is attacked now. When the knight moves, it's black's idea to start trying to push this pawn, trying to blow open the position.
Maybe he has the idea of just going back to the original plan, which I thought was initiate the attack on the right, but I don't think he has time because the white knight is threatening to go over to the b5 square. And here we have it. The pawn has pushed forward.
Yeah, now it's not so easy for white to gain time and to go after black's bishop. There's actually a threat of checkmate in 2 moves if white can take this bishop. Firstly, the bishop can move, but also now white has to worry about his own king. The pawn is coming down. So surely in this position, this pawn is just too dangerous. It's 2 squares away from promotion. Get rid of it. Take it off the board, and he does so. Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to call. It's just total chaos on the board.
Yeah, absolute chaos. I think he has to take the pawn, right?
Yeah.
Rook, you can't go backwards in this type of position. The momentum has to keep on being kind of propelled forward. Yeah. You can't lose it.
Yeah, it looks a bit dangerous for black. The king is on the back rank. It could get checkmated at some point if a white rook ever lands on this rank. But at the moment, the black queen keeps her king just about defended. The white king as well, vulnerable on this diagonal. Anything could happen. White is a pawn up and has the double, has the bishop pair, so white is a favourite. Arjun just defends by sliding his bishop out. Very, very logical move. If this rook moves now, it's going to end in checkmate. If the rook retreats anywhere, then this is going to be a knight check. Discovered attack as well, hitting the king, and when the knight is captured, queen takes bishop, because this piece has been opened up, defending the queen, and the king is trapped. End of the game. Magnus can't move his rook in the current position, otherwise he would lose. And he needs to defend it.
He needs to defend his rook, so that means a knight just has to hop in to the g4 square.
Yeah, maybe this one. This also looks very tempting. The computer's liking this one, but also says you can defend this rook with your queen. So, for example, giving the best move for black by quite significantly, actually, just defending with the queen. So now if the rook is captured, suddenly black is the one attacking.
Scary.
How is the evaluation bar so far in the middle here? I mean, it's just so imbalanced. OK, he does play this move defending his rook. They're entertaining us now. The first game was kind of strategic. This one is just, I mean, it's like dynamite, this game.
Absolutely. I mean, it's what we want to see, and it's what we expected, actually, from the first game. We thought that, you know, it would be a real slugfest with both players just going at each other's throats, and we've been rewarded with that right now. And whilst Eric Geisy is pausing for thought, it is a complicated position. We have an interesting question from Winston Churchill, who says...
Winston, thank you for your service to the country.
And the world, I'll like that.
In chess games overall, white has a percentage advantage over black. In Meltwater and candidates tournaments, how does this stat correlate? Does white win more often, or the same, or less, in your opinions? Ooh. And, well, we can pull up the stats of the Meltwater, and I can see that there's a 54% score for white. It's like 326 wins, 252 losses, and 355 draws, which kind of is unnervingly accurate to how it is in classical play.
Yeah. I think at all levels, it tends to kind of zone in on that amount, 54% for white.
Oh, do we have a blunder? Sorry.
Yeah, we absolutely do.
He's playing with fire, Rigaisi. Whether it's good or not, the evaluation bar tells us black is winning, but how can you let the black queen so near the white king? Look at the black queen and knight. They're the ideal attacking duo. The knight is the only piece that can move the way the queen can't. And I don't see the knockout blow yet, I must confess, but it looks scary.
We need to pull up the board, David, because this position is crazy. Because at first sight, it looks like there's going to be a killer blow.
There's only one move. Otherwise, white is completely winning. Black has one move to give himself the advantage. Everything else, white is going to win. So in this position, we saw in a capture, a trade, and the white king stepping across. And the computer says black has to move a knight into the centre. It says knight d5. Firstly, there's 2 knights that can go there. I'm not sure which one is best. Firstly, this came to mind, but suddenly I don't know what to do if the white rook steps across, because remember, if the queen moves, there's going to be a checkmate on the back rank. Maybe it has to be the other knight,
I think it has to be the other knight, and I think The idea is if you retreat the knight, this is so difficult to see, by the way. Once you capture that knight with your bishop, just say, then the knight can actually spring forward to the G4 square. And now there is no immediate killer blow for white, because if we go back, sorry, this is getting really complicated, but it is a crazy position, because if black were from the original position were to jump in with the knight to G4, that would be a big, big blooper. It would just be losing on the spot, because the white knight would jump to C6, and after pawn takes knight, the rook comes up to the 8th row, and once the king steps forward, the queen will deliver a checkmate on A6.
Yeah, so actually, one side is getting checkmated. If Magnus finds this move, which is, I've got to say, incredibly hard to see, he finds it. Wow.
No.
If he finds this move, he's doing the checkmating. If he played any other move, he would have been checkmated. Wow. Jovanka, you're right. This knight is coming in now. There's also the idea of some checks. There's also the black knight coming to take this pawn. Maybe white can't defend. And there again, we see the top computer move, Stockfish suggesting white's bishop dropping back. That is incredibly hard. Any other move? Black wins on the spot, essentially. And the first move that came to my mind was the rook shuffling across. This is the second best move for Stockfish, according to Stockfish, hitting the black queen. The black queen can move, though, with a check. And when the white king runs out the way, which I think it has to do, I think black can keep it simple now. There's still a threat of checkmate on the back rank, but black can create some escape squares, taking a knight with check, and another check. And yeah, black would win here because you can simply take the bishop on the next turn. Instead, Arjun has gone to capture this knight, and Magnus, he's going to deliver checkmate. It's unstoppable now. Checkmate coming on this square, or checkmate coming via the knight on this square. Two threats, and the white king is doomed. Magnus is going to win.
Yeah, Erigaisi shakes his head. He can see that he's losing game number 2 as well. Is this due to some inaccuracies by him, or is Magnus again playing incredible chess?
I mean, we can't fault Erigaisi. Yes, he blundered, but it's, from a human point of view, Magnus's move was just genius, right?
Yeah.
And to have calculated that, and there was such a narrow path as well. He forced Magnus to find like 3 or 4 only moves to win. Anything else, Erigaisi would have been winning. So he kind of gambled, Erigaisi, and didn't pay off, but...
And was it that knight move by Magnus? And here we go. Yeah. Wow, Magnus Carlsen is up by 2 points now in the final. Erigaisi with the white pieces. He loses in 30 moves. Magnus Carlsen is on fire, and it's going to be super dramatic. In 15 minutes, game 3, and with only a draw, Magnus will win the first match. It's going to be must-win for Arjun Erigaisi now in the 2 next games on day 1. Incredible play by Magnus Carlsen. We have to look at this game.
Yeah, we have to look, and it was really dramatic just at the end, but the whole game is well worth playing through again for everyone at home. Full of drama, full of interesting ideas, and here, Magnus put the bait out. This rook, it's actually poisoned. He said, please take it, and Erigaisi obliged. He did indeed capture this rook. If Erigaisi had played another move, just kept things solid, for example, moving his knight, maybe retreating it just to attack the black rook, then he would have been doing pretty well, still in the balance. Instead, he took the material, and after the queen recaptured, he thought, OK, I can sidestep with the white king. As Jovanka pointed out, if black is not careful here, if black, for example, goes for checkmate immediately, Erigaisi had set a nasty trap, a knight check, hitting the black king, and it's black who gets checkmated after a series of checks. The black king is trapped, nowhere to go. But Magnus had seen one move deeper, the only move that did win in that position. It's so hard to see. You retreat a piece. Knight retreats are the hardest move to see in chess. You step back, you're threatening a nasty queen check. You're also threatening the move that happened in the game. After bishop takes knight, the knight came in. And the difference now, compared to that previous variation, is that after white's knight jumps forward with a check, the white rook is blocked by its own bishop. There's no more checks, no more good checks against the black king. And checkmate is inevitable against white's king. In this position, white resigned since there were 2 threats. Queen coming forward with checkmate, and also knight takes pawn, checkmate. You can't stop them both. What a masterpiece. What a tactical duel by both players.
Wow, and it's going to be super dramatic when game 3 starts. Must win for Arjun Erigaisi. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to take at the social media leaderboard for this tournament. I wonder which players has been the most talked about on social media. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the new Chess24 playing experience. Play in light mode or dark mode. Choose from a range of time controls or create a custom game. And get paired with players from around the world fast. Enjoy a polished playing experience while making moves on a fresh, responsive board to claim your victories. Train and improve with over 80,000 puzzles. And that's not all. Download now and discover what more you can enjoy in our brand new app.
Air quality isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about chess and esports, but it affects our focus, decision-making, health, sleep, and more. What's in the air you breathe? Find out with Air Things.
I love sports, so that's how I train. I do football. I've started playing paddle recently. I also do some exercises with a personal trainer. But he always tries to make it about competition because that is what motivates me. I do not know if it's essential to be in good shape to be a good player, but I know that I play a lot better when I do feel well and that I'm at my best physically, for sure.
When I saw her for the first time, it was love at first sight. I love how rich and complex she is, how sharp and principled her first steps, how graceful her movement. Paris is a city of love. I've come to find my love for the French defense.
Welcome back to the first day in the final of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. In only a few minutes, Game 3 will start, and that will be must-win for young Arjun Erigaisi. Before that, we are joined again by our friend from Meltwater, Zubair. Hey, it's nice to see you again.
Hi, Kaja. Great to see you, and a pleasure to join you live from London for a change, not Dubai this time around.
From London. It's all about England in this studio. Now, Zubair, it's been a special tournament. I'm really looking forward to the social media leaderboard this time. But first of all, you have to remind us, Meltwater, what is it that you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I'm super excited to be talking about the social coverage. I think it's fair to say that chess has been fairly popular in the news recently, right?
Oh, yeah.
And ultimately for us, given that we are a global organization, Meltwater is a company that originated in Oslo, Norway, and is now a major global player in the field of online and social media monitoring. So we help our clients across a variety of sectors to monitor, analyze, and act upon digital insights. Similar to chess, which is based on information available for both players, we help businesses make better real-time decisions based on the data provided. And I must say, given the international nature of the sport, it's great to see us reporting and commenting on chess, whether it be in Miami previously or Dubai before that as well.
Absolutely. And now I think everyone's excited. Let's bring up the social media leaderboard for the Julius Baer Generation Cup, where it has been all about generations. Of course, we had some legends in chess. I do see Vasily Ivanchuk there, but there has been a chess drama that has been just overshadowing everything. On top, Hans Niemann. He has been talked about a lot, Zubair.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, like, I've never been this excited on a Saturday night to present social data. It has truly been historic in terms of the coverage, and it will come as no surprise to our audience that the #1 spot in the social media leader sport has been taken by Hans Niemann. So Niemann is the most popular player by far. He dominated the social media leaderboard with over 54,000 mentions across Twitter, blogs, and other sources too. And Niemann's share of voice is a combination of sporting and current affairs coverage based on recent events. So let me just put this into context. It is more than 35 times more than Niemann's average, and is one of the most active mentions for any chess player during a tournament period. In addition, Hans becomes the first player in recent months to break the top 3 in the social media board, comprising of Magnus, Anish Giri, and Prague. So in many ways, the coverage, supporting content, and social mentions have been unprecedented. Before I touch upon the other players, that is pretty amazing, don't you think, Kaja?
Absolutely. It's super interesting.
Yeah, and so looking at the top 3, Magnus is, of course, present, followed by Anish Giri. And as always, Anish brought his unique sense of humor, tweeting out a picture of Niemann and Carlsen playing chess on the beach in Miami. He requested over 1,000 likes for a reveal. And to today, he has over 3,000 likes. So he's a popular player. And on a lighthearted note, our friend David Howell recently tweeted a picture of him playing chess when he was younger. And some of the online conversations have compared him to looking like Keanu Reeves. David, I always knew you brought a bit of Hollywood to the coverage. There are also notable mentions for Prague, Arjun, and of course Levon.
How
you flatter me, thank you.
All right, and I kind of want to ask, because when we see Hans Niemann on top here, Zubair, of course, we call it a cheating scandal, and I kind of want to ask then, is all PR good PR for chess? Definitely a lot of people talking about chess now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the general sentiment online has been relatively neutral. I think people are interested in the drama that chess is bringing to the table. And I think ultimately sport likes stories, right? It likes those that are winning, those that are losing, those that are in between. I think what's different about this is that this drama has played out over a series of weeks. And what you're seeing is content creators are jumping on this. So whether it's a podcast, whether it's commentary, whether it's a tweet, the community is really coming together to support this conversation and this debate, no matter which side of the debate you may lay on.
And of course, we also have to bring up the social media insight with the emojis, the hashtags. What has been the most popular in this tournament?
Yes, again. So what we see amongst this is a clear leader in terms of countries being the United States of America. So the share of voice has dominated the social media landscape. And to give you a flavor of the coverage, chess has been mentioned in respected broadsheets such as the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, international news outlets such as BBC and CNN, and tabloids such as the New York Post. So the growth of the social media footprint is very encouraging given the sheer size of the US, and this data is positive as we seek to grow the sport in multiple global markets. Outside of that, we also have to give a notable mention to Elon Musk. He also commented in a now deleted tweet, which helped push and maintain the social media outreach across the globe. India, UK, Germany, and Norway complete the country leaderboard. So Kaja, before we go into your favorite, which is the emojis and some of the hashtags, I think it's clear to see that we're gaining significant global traction, right, across the whole tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see the US on the top there. And of course, the word that takes my attention is shocker. I guess that has to do with the drama.
Yes, absolutely. So shocker is perhaps the best word that describes the general online sentiment. The second move features 2. As expected, given the recent game between Niemann and Magnus, this video has been viewed close to 1 million times on Twitter. And that is a staggering figure. So to put this into context for our audience, a sporting great in the field of tennis, Roger Federer, played his last game yesterday. And a video titled Emotional Final Farewell has been viewed just over 1.3 million times on Twitter. So this data, as presented, indicates the sheer scale of chess's coverage recently and its popularity. And on a light-hearted note, we saw the emoji analysis really provide an insight into how the audience is feeling about the tournament today. Popcorn, I guess, to keep up with the ongoing drama, the peace sign that's there, and of course the mind-blown emoji. I think that perfectly describes how we're all feeling. And naturally, the hashtag that's dominating is hashtag chess drama, a great way to keep up with the latest developments in this story. So all of this together means that chess is no longer operating within the sports landscape when it comes to online conversation. It's actually entered pop culture. And I think that can only be a good thing for the viewers, the players, and the community at large.
Yeah, chess is definitely popular. So, Baer, as always, a big thank you to both you and Meltwater for giving us this valuable insight.
It's been an absolute pleasure. That's all from me. And be sure to get me an autograph from the Keanu Reeves lookalike there.
We'll do that. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, I'm going to get that autograph. But first, let's head back down to the good night. I bet they are enjoying some popcorn. It's chess drama in the final as well, Simon, with Magnus and Arjun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Magnus is playing so well at the moment. I mean, who can beat him in this form? And I have to say, I'm meeting some real characters down here today. Can't wait until you guys get down. But let's just have a little look around and see if we get some more opinion on how Magnus is getting on, and maybe Magnus in general. We know that Magnus drinks down here a lot, so if you're ever coming over to Norway, you must come down to the Good Night pub. And we're coming into another room. Lots of people playing chess. Everyone enjoying themselves? Yeah, okay. There we go. Good, good. Are you all Team Magnus? Yeah? Of course, of course. So we got a lot of good Magnus people here, and let's just have a chat. And are you a Magnus fan yourself?
Yes, yes.
And how do you think he's getting on so far? He's playing incredible chess, right? And is he going to win the next game as well?
He's going to win the whole thing. He's been incredible the whole tournament, and yeah, he's great.
And is he a bit of a hero in Norway? I mean, do a lot of people look up to Magnus and think this is the kind of guy I want to be like, you know, cool, smooth, winning everything?
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy to think that he's from Norway, a small nation, so good at chess. It's weird to think about.
Brilliant. So, I mean, obviously, Magnus has done so many great things here in Norway, and we can see he's inspired loads of people here. Obviously, got Team Magnus. Oh, hello, Christopher. How you doing? Got a good friend there. Haven't seen for a while. And how are you getting on, Christopher?
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Are you cheering for Magnus, right?
Yeah, I'm cheering for Magnus.
Good stuff, good stuff. And lots of people enjoying themselves, very much looking forward to the next game. I don't know how Arjun is going to get back into the match. He's going to need Magnus to calm down a little bit, but either way, I'm ready for you guys to come and join us later on. Are you going to come down, Kaja, later on?
You owe me a glass of wine, Simon, so I will have to. Game 3 is starting here. Magnus with the white pieces. A draw or a win. He will be the winner of the first match. It's must win for Arjun.
Wow, and Kaja, I'm very excited. It's my childhood opening, the C3 Sicilian, probably my favorite opening in the whole of chess.
Oh.
At least when I was younger. And Magnus, he's playing it. I've never actually seen him play it before in a kind of crunch game, in a serious game like this. I've played it against Magnus. I've had this position against Magnus, but when I've had white, he's had black. And yeah, it's got a good, it's got a decent reputation, the opening, and pretty safe for white if you don't do anything too crazy. What do you think, Jovanka?
I think it's an inspired choice. I mean, it's something that Erigaisi perhaps wouldn't have expected, as you mentioned. And also, he's got a lot of experience playing the black side against you. And did you school him in any variations?
He schooled me in the opening, but I managed to make a draw when I had white. 2009 London Chess Classic. And Magnus, OK, he's brought the white knight out via the edge of the board. That's a good tip for everyone at home. You can put your knight on the edge of the board. It's sometimes fine, but you've got to re-centralize it very quickly, and he's done that, Magnus. I didn't go for this maneuver against him. I went for a different setup for white. Now white's knight jumps in. This is still relatively known stuff. I've seen various games in this position. Trendy, and Arjun, yeah, you're right. He would never have guessed this. Magnus, it seems to be his idea in all the openings, just to surprise his young rival, and it's been working so far.
Yeah.
It's thrown Arjun off balance, spending more time on the clock than we're used to, getting a bit of nerves maybe, and yeah, good choice by Magnus.
And he's going to need some support, energy, Arjun Erigaisi. A lot of Magnus fans, of course, in the Good Night pub in Oslo. If you are an Arjun fan, if you want him to strike back, which I know there are a lot of people out there in the world who want, then send him some love on social media. Use the hashtag #ChessChamps.
I want him to strike back. I want another game today. I don't want it to end after 3. I want a 4th game. And yeah, there's so many fans out there, and rightly so.
he does. I have to say, Kaja, he does have a lot of support on
Amazing.
Twitter. A lot of people are cheering for their boy, Arjun, and he's given it his best. You know, yes, the results haven't gone his way so far, but you can see he's really tried. And that game from just now, that was just insane. Yeah. It was absolutely unbelievable. I'm still like gobsmacked, actually.
Yeah. Fantastic
just thinking about that game, you know, how wild it got. And I do think, even though it didn't quite go Arjun's way, he needs to do a little bit more of that.
Yeah, he needs to do a bit more of that. In general, I think he maximises his percentages, he maximises his odds. Arjun, if he does make things crazy, that last game, that last chaotic tactical melee, it did work out in Magnus's favour, but it doesn't always go that way. It was very tiny margins there. It could easily have ended up in Arjun's favour. So, yeah, the thing is, what we're seeing right now, knights getting traded, queens potentially coming off, that is Magnus's home turf. That's his comfort zone.
Yeah, and now that the queens are going to get traded off, I mean, what chances do you give Black to grind out a win against the world champion in his element?
It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy for Arjun. I quite like his last move. The queens were probably going to get traded off anyway. So at least he's saying, yes, Magnus, we can take the queens off the board, but it's going to happen on my terms. If white goes and takes the black queen, then black's queenside pawns, which are separated right now, they're both isolated, they will connect. And at least you improve your structure somewhat. Yeah, it's going to be hard, though.
It is going to be hard. But 2 games in my database. One from 2010, finished in a draw between Masha Klinova and Karolina Lujan, 2 strong women grandmasters, maybe international masters, in fact. And also a victory for Black in the game between Nisha Mahota and Arsian Otchev.
Okay.
So it's possible.
Black is undefeated in this position, it looks like. And Magnus is thinking, how can he get the queens off? How does he guide the game to safety? Arjun is going to put up a fight. He's still got plenty of pieces to do so.
Well, remember, if Magnus wins this game, he's not only going to win the match, he will be rated at 2,900 in the tour. And actually, I have some massive numbers. So, of course, he lost to Hans Niemann on purpose in the preliminaries. If he hadn't lost that game, his rating right now would already be above 20. He would be at 2905. And more impressively, his performance rating in this tournament would have been 3,000. 3,000, wow. Is that even possible?
Apparently. I mean, it's never been possible for most mortals, but Magnus, he's an exception, right? And, I mean, that's another level.
Yeah, have we ever seen that?
It's not, I think, in such a large sample size with so many games. He's played, remember, 15 games in the prelims. How many games in the knockout so far?
4, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's played over 20 games in this tournament. 3,000 has been reached before. Magnus has got there before, I think, in one tournament in China in 2009, but that was fewer games. That was just 9 games. It's another level we're seeing right now from the world number 1.
Wow, wow. But that would only have been if he hadn't lost. I think he lost 15 rating points losing to Hans. But definitely, if he wins this game, probably tomorrow, he can actually reach a performance rating of 3,000. And winning this game, he will reach 2,900 in the tour ratings.
And if he draws this game, is he kind of close?
He's close. Then he can do it tomorrow. All right.
And, well, it's a critical moment for Magnus Carlsen. Will he trade off queens? Will he try to force Black to trade off queens themselves? So we'll see what happens there. But whilst the players are thinking, well, our viewers, you guys are just amazing, sending us some selfies. And we have a selfie from Jetlix Arts, who says, "Go, go, Super Magnus," and sends us greetings from the Philippines.
That's David's cape.
Yeah, there's the meltwater sign, right? That's
right.
In the middle.
Yeah.
Very cool artwork.
Very good. And there we do see a trade of queens, and the white knight steps forward. And we have another selfie from Martin Rossini, who says, "The kings battling for their reign. White, sunny Buenos Aires witness it all." And then he asks this question, when do you have the battle of the sexes between Kaja / Jovanka against Simon / David?
Well, it's going to be you.
Jovanka. But hang on a second, they didn't actually say chess.
Yeah.
Sure,
you'd beat
so
us
let's
at
get
plenty of sports.
Yeah.
Golf, you'd beat us, Kaja.
Golf, let's do golf, you guys. I think that's the only one.
But I'm very uncoordinated. Are you sure you want me on your team?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that, Jan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, here we have the picture. And there we see Magnus. He just returning to his seat.
Yeah, it looks like he's just changed position there. Normally, when I change position in my seat, it means that something's happened. I've either got very excited about my position or I'm a bit frustrated and I want to maybe get some energy. But, OK, Magnus, he, remember, took the queens off the board. That is step one towards just neutralising any risk, just maybe guiding the game towards a draw. But you can't play too passive, and we've seen that happen before. Even Magnus himself has occasionally been guilty of that. If you play too hard for the draw, it can rebound. You can make passive decisions. He's brought his bishop out, and it feels a bit loose for White. White's knight in the centre is nice, but some pressure there. The dark squared bishops. It looks like a pin. Somehow I like what Arjun's doing.
I like what Arjun's doing as well. You know, he's got very nice pawn structure and he has good pieces. And like you said, there is a lot of tension in the standoff between the dark squared bishops. I was thinking about when you said about Magnus taking negative decisions. I suddenly had memories of his game against, well, his match against Duda.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had it in the bag. He just needed, I think, half a point more. And he just kept taking these passive decisions and he turned a winning position into a promising position. And then we could see the trajectory go down and until he finally lost it.
And the bar is going up for Arjun now.
Yeah,
and Magnus shook his head, yeah?
Yeah, you're right, Kaja. I was about to point out, Magnus definitely didn't look happy. He's gone back to covering his mouth, poker face, that kind of defensive body language. And he's got to defend on the board for a few moves. I really like what Arjun did with the black rook. That was unexpected. It's rare. Magnus shaking his head again and quite significantly. But yeah, it's rare to see a black rook defend or kind of develop itself, kind of this way up the board. Normally you see the black rooks or either side's rooks come across. Normally you don't see them step up, develop on their starting file. And White has been forced to retreat. And even if we see a trade of dark square bishops, that doesn't necessarily mean the game is being guided towards a draw. It feels like White is losing a lot of time. It's very tempting as well for Black to push a pawn in the middle of the board right now. Start gaining space, gaining momentum, gaining tempi.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jovanka?
I agree with you. We do see a trade of dark square bishop and a pawn has stepped up the board. It wasn't the pawn I was expecting, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I did, of course, expect that pawn to move forward on one occasion, but not immediately.
Yeah, maybe you could push this pawn to hit the knight or this pawn to hit the knight. I'm not sure which one. I guess Arjun's idea is to keep that up his sleeve for later. This bishop has been unleashed. And yeah, pawn structure-wise, it's definitely better for Black right now. Black has an extra central pawn. It's 4 versus 3 on the right half of the board. And on the other flank, I don't know, this looks very active to me, this rook. It's keeping an eye on this pawn, causes some pressure here. Later, if the white bishop ever disappears, the black rook can kind of switch to attack this one. OK, Magnus keeps his king very safe, guarding some pawns there. I just think the king position as well, better for Black. Black's king is in the centre. It's an endgame. It's ready to put kind of join and dart to either side of the board later. Magnus, meanwhile, his king is poorly placed, but he had to put it here just to get his rooks in the game. Yeah, I mean, if I were Arjun, just automatic, just push this knight back, kick it away, force it to retreat. OK, he does that in a different manner. He pushes his rook to hit the knight. Also looks good.
Also looks good. I think he's trying to provoke Magnus into protecting his knight with a pawn, thereby lengthening the diagonal for his bishop.
Yeah, I mean, this bishop, sometimes you think it's hitting thin air, but actually it controls a lot of very important squares. There's enough pieces to cause the white king some discomfort. So instead, Magnus steps back, but it's all a bit timid for White. Magnus, he's been on fire, winning all these games by kind of playing actively. Now he's just trying to draw the world champion. And Arjun needs to take this opportunity. It's not a big opportunity, but it feels like a small glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
He brings his remaining piece into the game. That black rook was doing nothing. Yeah, just Magnus, he needs to somehow trade off a set of rooks, trade off all the rooks if he can. If he trades off all the rooks, should be a draw. But right now, if you compare those pieces, It's clear that blacks are more active than whites.
It's not easy to trade all the rooks, I have to say, really because the rook standing there on the A line actually has a target. So black can start bullying white with this factor.
Yeah.
And I really like your plan of just taking the space on the right side. For me, it's like, just do it. Do it, Arjun. Push the pawns, grab as much space as possible, and come on, put Magnus under some pressure.
Yeah, I think Magnus is stunned to feel the pressure. He just wants to get today done, but that's not normally a good mentality. OK, he just pushes a pawn. Again, very solid. This pawn is no longer vulnerable now, but this structure we see from white on the left half of the board, that 3, white's pawns there, there's a hole in front of them. They're potentially vulnerable to knights jumping in later.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Feels a bit, yeah, it's not ideal for white. And again, black has a free role to push on the side. He's stronger. He's stronger with the 4 versus 3 majority on the right half, so that's where he should be playing.
Yeah. No, I have nightmares about that pawn structure, not because of any personal games of mine or anything. It's to do with when I was a child learning, I found it very difficult to read books. So my father would read books with us, and he would buy all these old Soviet books, and would sit there together as a family, and he would say, "This is the triangle. It's terrible. It's terrible." And he says, "Look at them. They can easily be restrained." And I just remember that so vividly. And I remember also that one of his things was that he would set up a position, and then he would kind of take all the pieces away, and we'd have to recreate that position. And that triangle was one of those exercises.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, this pawn structure for white is just never really going to move on the left. Otherwise, you just weaken yourself. And meanwhile, Arjun, I quite liked his bishop where it stood, but he's trying to play concretely. He's going for potential threats. Direct threats. I'm not sure what it is right now, but there is a pin. Black's bishop is eyeing up this kind of white knight that's hanging in the air. It's very complicated. In terms of what to do for white, I don't really see a plan. White's bishop steps back. OK, looks passive. It looks like a move Magnus didn't want to play, but it does keep the bishop nice and safe. That bishop was loose, vulnerable, and anytime you get pinned, you want to keep your pieces protected. So, Arjun, how does he increase the pressure? He's the one creating right now on the front foot. Yeah. Magnus just reacting.
He is reacting. I wonder whether Magnus has any sneaky ideas of potentially trapping the black rook. Yeah. Or just asking a question to it.
Yeah, maybe we can show this. For example, I've been itching for a while to start pushing these pawns. Say black pushes one of them right now. Ideas to trap this one, maybe pushing a pawn.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how this is weak, this structure, or it can be controlled later by black pushing a pawn. But maybe you take the opportunity to step forward, and if I'm naive here and just maybe push this pawn forward, then maybe it's not lost yet, but this rook is in big trouble on the edge of the board. Also, I have an inkling Magnus has ideas to jump his knight in, and suddenly there are threats of the knight coming forward with a check and a fork. Suddenly, at least some activity, which didn't exist 2 moves ago.
No, I love that knight move. So you do have to take precautions there.
Yeah.
So how are you going to stop the... Oh, so he retreats his bishop.
But that's not good, I guess, for Arjun. I mean, it takes a lot of you have to get rid of all your pride, essentially, all your ego, in order to move your bishop forward 1 square. White steps back, and then move your bishop back. Magnus does indeed jump into the centre, so black has actually lost 2 moves. Yeah, he's lost 2 tempi, moving his bishop back and forth again. Now, how does he react? You kind of want to get this rook in the game, but right now there is a threat to play rook takes rook and then win a pawn. So he moves his rook into the centre. It feels like Magnus is somehow untangled. He's surviving. It just feels like, Arjun trying to hurry on the clock as well, but he's lost some time on the board.
Yeah, and I imagine the white knight will just relocate itself to the c4 square and actually threaten the pawn on b6.
Yeah, that looks like a very safe move. Worst comes to worst, you step back into the centre, nice square. Actually, yeah, you're right, Jovanka. This is severe weakness. Yeah, it's turning. It's turning. Magnus is the king of endgames after all. Arjun needs to be careful.
Yeah. It's so easy to lose time like that. And Magnus, again, making it look so easy. You know, he had a slightly unpleasant position, and he seems to have neutralised that with some ugly-looking moves. And Arjun thinking, Magnus also thinking. What will he play?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, your move looks so natural, Jovanka, just retreating the white knight back, attacking this pawn. What else? I guess you could trade off a set of rooks, potentially. The reason you might not want to do this is that black has the option to change the pawn structure. I'm not sure, again, whether black actually really wants to do this, but black could unite these 3 pawns. Potentially this one will push forward later. So maybe Magnus just weighing up that option. All the top players, they always pause before they change the pawn structure. That's just a pattern, because changing pawn structure is committal long-term, and you've got to weigh up long-term whether it's worth it. Maybe Magnus, I mean, this looks too flashy, bringing the bishop out to hit the rook.
I suspect that is going to be the move.
Yeah.
I can see that being a Magnus type of move.
Oh, plays your one. Yours is more natural. And yeah, just, whoops, my arrows are a bit off today. He's attacking this pawn, and black therefore defends it. And yeah, I mean, for example, at the very least, Magnus will drop his knight back and just try to trade off this rook. Still in the balance, this game.
All right. Well, that's good news for Magnus. A draw is enough for him to finish this first match in only 3 games. And now the triangle is unleashed, or not unleashed, it's not there anymore.
It's not there anymore. Yeah. And so I think Magnus was probably quite relieved to change the pawn structure. And now you can see he's advancing his pawn. And it actually it can become something that Arjun has to worry about, because it is a potential passed pawn. And, well, the rooks have left the board, the bishop centralizes itself. I'm thinking that there's going to be a turn, and that it's white who stands maybe that slightly bit better.
Yeah, and look how Magnus, he loves to do this in middle games, end games these days. Just pushes all his rook's pawns forward. That means the A and H pawns. He just pushes them, gains space. It's the end game, so you often see pawn races later on, one side pushing on one flank, the other side pushing on the other side, and Magnus always seems to be winning the races because he just plants his pawns as far up the board as possible. Now, I was about to say he's going to make an entry path for the white king towards the centre. The white king needs to centralise for later. It feels like he's just going to keep the status quo forever, just going to sit. It's hard to see what black actually does. Black's rook is terribly placed now. Black's knight is tied down defending a pawn. Black's bishop is kind of stuck plugging the central file.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just looks like he can sit.
Do you think Magnus even had to think about these last 2 moves?
No,
it was just with the hand.
Yeah, it's like blindfold chess for Magnus. It's just like, OK, I want to bring my king to the centre, I want to improve a pawn structure, piece. That stuff you don't even need to calculate, right? He's so good at that.
And just looking at the camera, he looks like he's in Zen mode. Meanwhile, poor Arjun, he looks like, oh no.
Must win with black against Magnus Carlsen is the toughest game in chess.
It is incredibly difficult. And I feel like one of the great things about Aragaisi is that he's so cool and he's so composed, and that will just serve him, it would just benefit him no end.
Yeah, he needs that youthful optimism now. I'm a bit older and I'm a bit jaded. I'm like, oh, if I had black in this position. OK, draw, let's go to tomorrow. But Arjun, he's young, he's still capable, he's still full of tricks. He's got to believe that he can do it.
But do you know what Simon in the bar would say?
What do you do now? You don't need to resign, you can offer a draw.
Yeah, offer a draw. And it would be the same thing. Resign. We do miss our ginger GM.
I think he's having a great time.
I think he's not missing us one bit.
No. That's his favorite place in the world, in the bar, playing chess at the same time. Lucky people down there, they get to challenge a grandmaster who is just a perfect banter blitz player in a pub. I bet they are enjoying themselves. Also, watching this, the other 2 games were very explosive, very entertaining, drama all the time. This one feels a little calmer.
Yeah, and this is Magnus's choice. When you have white, earlier we were talking about percentages, white normally scores 50%, 54% on average across all levels of chess. But the beauty of having white is you can choose the opening and you can choose the pace, the style of the opening. And here, Magnus guided the opening quickly towards the endgame, took all the sting out, took all the fun out. And although black was probably doing quite well for a small phase, Magnus is great at killing the draw, killing the game if he needs. And that's okay, bringing his rook across.
We're seeing it right now. You know, it looks like a very harmless move, but instead he has intentions of perhaps pushing his B pawn, and if he pushes the B pawn, the A pawn will follow, and it will be Erigaisi who perhaps might be grovelling for the draw.
Yeah, and clock times, nothing serious to write home about there. Erigaisi slightly behind, but it's just unable to find a plan. The black rook still, what is it doing?
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah, and whilst Arjun is thinking, well, Peter Saddington sent us a selfie. He said, "Let's go, Magnus," cheering from Atlanta. We'll bring up the picture. Oh, wow, that is one impressive setup. Wow. Is that the garage?
It must be.
Looks like a proper man cave, that one.
Yeah, doing some handiwork at the same time.
Yeah, it's incredible. Nice selfie from Peter. And, well, we have seen the night retreat. And Nerdy Geographer asks us a question. Is there something that you really like, are really passionate about, but absolutely suck at? And he says that's chess for him.
Ooh, that's a good question.
I know what I'm really passionate about it. I really like it, but I'm terrible at it. It's like looking after houseplants. I love them so much, and I want to have a house full of them, but they all die. And I get given these beautiful orchids, and it's like 2 weeks later, I swear, I'm like watering it, I'm feeding it, I'm reading up on the internet what to do, and I've killed the thing.
Yeah, I think many people struggle with that. For me, it's chess. So that sucks. But we're going to go down to Simon. I think the word has spread in Oslo that you are down there and that there is a cool watch party at the Good Night, Simon.
There is. I mean, look at this. I think everyone here is for the watch party. They're waiting. Oh, actually, hang on a minute. They're going the wrong way. Are you here for Magnus Carlsen?
No, we're not.
Okay, well, I think we got the wrong cue there. Let's go inside. Let's go inside. And here we are. We're here at the Good Night, and there's lots of chess going on, and lots of people enjoying their game, enjoying the thing. It looks like Magnus is rolling today. He's playing such good chess. Loads of people are watching the games. Let's see a bit more opinion. Hi, guys. Are you Magnus Carlsen fans? Yes or no?
Well, yes.
Yes.
Of course.
Is anyone not a Magnus Carlsen fan? Oh, there we go. There's loads. There's loads of fans here, and I think everyone's getting a bit more drunk. Look, here we go. Hello. Do you want
to be both Hans Niemann and Magnus Carlsen?
I tell you what, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Are you having a good night?
Yeah, of course.
There you go. Everyone's having a good night here. It's getting a little bit rowdy. You know, I'm trying to hold it together. I'm trying to watch the chess. I mean, just look at this crowd out here. I'm sure they're for Magnus. I'm sure they're for Magnus. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, back to the studio, and it looks like it's going to be Magnus's day today.
It certainly does, Simon. Enjoy yourself. It could be an early night for many people. If Magnus gets a draw in this game, the bar says 0.0 is a draw. Definitely the most likely.
I wouldn't say definitely, but it is the most likely right now. It's just hard to find a plan for either side. And Magnus, he's just waiting with the white rook, just hinting that he'll push some pawns. Black's king going back. Where's that going? Not entirely clear. Yeah, it's completely balanced. That doesn't mean it's going to be a draw. At some point, Erigaisi has to go for it. He might as well, but that will come with some risk entailed as well. And Jovanka, do you see any chance at all for Black? I'm starting to lose hope.
I'm a bit pessimistic, to be honest. And primarily it's because it's not very easy for Black to start advancing those pawns on the right. I mean, if you could get a pass pawn somewhere or just take some space or just do something positive, then I would feel a lot more optimistic. As it stands, I'm just thinking it's Magnus who is controlling the pace of the game. And there you go. He steps forward with the B pawn. And it's going to be all about those pawns on the left.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very decisive move. It shows that Magnus is not lacking for confidence. can't blame him. He's playing so well this tournament. I would have personally, as white, maybe just started moving the king towards the centre, maybe just pushed white's h-pawn forward just to clamp down, just to sit there. But Magnus, he wants to go for that draw, at least. Maybe he wants more. Erigaisi now just clinging on. The black king, the black rook, they're passively defending pawns. Yeah, the more I look at it, the more I think it's black now on the defensive, and the evaluation bar slowly creeping up in white's favour. Erigaisi had such a good position, but that's the problem in chess, when you don't, or when you can't find a good plan, when you kind of just move pieces around just for the sake of it, things start to turn. And if you're playing move by move, just trying to react to your opponent, then yeah, that will backfire. Yeah, I mean, I can't blame him. It's just a difficult position, especially in a must-win situation. He's trying, but what next? If white just moves the king, for example, if white just waits, white can move the knight, white can...
Yeah, move the king. The king. Yeah, when you suggested the king move earlier instead of the pawn push, I was like, of course. That is the way to play.
So many options.
And you still take me by surprise, even though I know that this is the way you play.
Yeah.
And I forget.
But that's why I'm not Magnus Carlsen. He's a bit more direct, and that can be a good thing too.
No, I love it, David. Never change.
Thank you. And yeah, Magnus. Okay, he's caught up on the clock. That's one good sign for Erigaisi. Maybe one practical idea for Erigaisi would be to wait until both players are down to about 3-4 minutes, or maybe even less, and then start to kind of gamble a bit, take some risks. Okay, Magnus, though, he's trying to clarify things immediately. Is he trying too hard to force the draw? He's just taken off a set of pawns, traded off the rooks, jumping in with his knight, attacking a pawn, but now white's pawns, there's a potential for them to be a bit weak. White's pawns on the left side are both isolated.
And now Arjun has the triangle. Magnus taking advantage of that hole.
Yeah, that is very true. But that knight is out there on a limb, and it doesn't have too many squares if the e-pawn takes one step forward.
Yeah, there's a chance that white knight might just be on a bad circuit. I guess there's an immediate threat in the position. We talked about the triangle structure. That's this one. That means there's always a hole. So white's knight is doing a good job occupying. And if black is careless and, for example, let's say just wastes a move, just moves the bishop, then white has this big threat of dropping back with the knight hitting this pawn. As soon as it moves, you can jump in with a check, and you win a pawn either way. Or you can even go to the edge of the board and win a pawn like this. Hit the base of the pawn chain. This is always the way to win pawns. Hit the base, and once the foundations crack, the other pawns drop as well. One of these two will fall. So big threat, and as Jovanka says, maybe black's best bet, in this position is to push this pawn forward. It was weak after all in that variation. Why not step forward?
I'm thinking that maybe his idea is actually to also challenge that pawn. But, you know, I'm a pawn pusher, and maybe I'm, like, reacting way too harsh in this.
No, I mean, it makes sense, Jovanka. If you can trade off a bunch of pawns, you should be able to guide the game towards a draw. Arjun just ignores the threat. Wow, brings his bishop.
No, but this is what Magnus wants. You know, he would love to trade. Oh, no, he pushes the forward.
Maybe Magnus wants to win. Maybe we're just getting it wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to just reel my words back in.
Commentator's curse. I mean, if Magnus wanted to force the draw there, he could easily have just retreated his knight, and same idea, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was thought, OK, he does that, and then it's going to be a draw. Yeah. All the pawns are on the same side. But Magnus says no. Maybe he played that move very, very quickly.
Yeah. And knights are well known to be really bad at stopping these rook's pawns, the A and H pawns. This one is about to start marching through, and the bishop steps back, hitting the white knight. And yeah, Magnus, he's playing for the win.
Yeah, he's going for it.
Yeah, and now after this bishop move, he can go to the side of the board, right?
Yeah.
Magnus is winning. You win a pawn.
Whoa.
You can't defend either this pawn or this pawn. One of them's dropping.
Yeah, Magnus has his sights on 2900 because this is once again such an incredible performance.
Yeah.
From nowhere, he magicked that.
Yeah, this is why he's another level. He can change gears, he can shift, he can change the pace of the game. And Erigaisi, okay, one move he's played and it's all fallen apart, but he was in an impossible situation anyway. It was hard to win for black, maybe even impossible to win. So he's going to go down with his ship. And he's going to lose a third game.
Oh, no.
You just can't save these pawns. If black's knight, for example, tries to counterattack against the white pawn can happily step forward. And it's still tough to round this one up. The white bishop's actually doing a great defensive job protecting it. And, OK, this happens. Which one do you let go? Maybe you just let this one drop. The black king moving, but white is a pawn up. White's knight is just going to come back and start cleaning up, mopping up the rest of black's pawns.
And the white king, you know, hadn't really moved after it castled, suddenly in prime position to start moving towards the right.
Yeah, it looks like it's, well, I was going to say matter of technique. We criticised that phrase the other day, but it looks relatively straightforward now for white. I would just get this knight back to a safe square. It doesn't have too many. Look at Arjun, poor guy. He's just come up against an inspired opponent today. Just drop the knight back, attack this pawn. When it steps forward, now you can start bringing the king maybe, or now you can just centralise your knight. This pawn will act as a distraction. It will take black 3 or 4 moves to go and win it. In the meantime, white will achieve something else on the other flank. Almost game over now. Last stages of this game.
Yeah, I have a suspicion also white's knight is going to do some damage work, like you highlighted. Go after pawns and, oh, the devastation on Arjun's face. Oh, it's hard. Painful, isn't it?
That's the thing. Sometimes against these real elite players who can step up. I mean, Arjun's been great so far, but he just hasn't had a chance today. Yeah, sometimes against them you just have to learn, and he does have another opportunity tomorrow. He looks tortured right now. Real suffering. Chess is a hard game.
Yeah, he knows, of course, the world is watching. A big chance to play against the world champion in a match, but it hasn't been his day. And we have to also say Magnus Carlsen is playing some of his best chess this season on the tour.
Yeah.
Incredible.
He's playing like a legend, and poor Arjun, you know, my heart really feels for him. But, you know, he will come back stronger, and he has another matchup tomorrow. So don't lose the faith, Arjun. And the great thing, though, is that he has a fantastic support network around him.
Yeah, the family, great coaches as well. Yeah, Arjun, still, it's only going to be half-time after today's match.
Yeah.
Still plenty of opportunity. OK, here the white king comes. The white a-pawn drops, but we will see. OK, Magnus reacted.
Did he blunder?
Yeah, he kind of blundered away the win. But is he losing? No. Is it going to be a draw? Probably.
Yeah,
but
might still win. But I think he's realised that once the white king starts coming towards the centre, it still looks winning to me. Oh, it still looked winning to me, but once the white king starts coming, there will be a way to kick it out of the middle of the board. But yeah, still 0 risk. And yeah, the win's gone, but the match, well, today's one match will be over. White is just going to push his g-pawn now. Arjun's still on the defensive, despite clawing his way back somewhat. Maybe Magnus is annoyed that the 2900 rating might be disappearing. We know he loves those numbers.
Yeah, he seems to be in such good form, but probably he expects to win and expects to play very good chess. And so this will annoy him that he let slip a win.
Yeah. And I must say, this tournament, so far at least, it's probably the best I've seen Magnus play since 2019, just since he was just destroying everyone. I mean, he's been on a roll. He won, what was it, 9 games or something in the prelims, and then straight through here, so far without any playoffs. OK, a trade of pawns. The reason this should be a draw is because simply both sides are running out of material. We'll see a bunch more exchanges. Both sides are likely to create pass pawns at some point. Black central pawn is already a pass pawn, I guess.
Yeah, and do you think the white king will also begin to mobilise itself and move towards the centre?
Most likely, yeah. And yeah, what Magnus Carlsen miscalculated is that simply the white king was too slow to run into the centre. Black could grab his pawn, that white a pawn earlier, and as you mentioned, still should be safe enough. 2 options here. I guess you just move the white king, or you start pushing the white g pawn forward. That should also be enough to guarantee the draw.
Yeah, my first instinct is to push the pawns, always. I'm never going to break the habit of a lifetime. And Magnus also agrees.
Yeah, pass pawns are there to be pushed.
And I wonder whether Arjun can maybe drum up something if he steps forward with his king and attacks the pawn.
That's the only plan, right, for Black. Black has to activate his king. It's offside. Bring it towards white's pawn. Even if Magnus loses that pawn, and worst comes to worst for either player here, if you imagine all the pawns disappearing, even if one side loses a knight or a bishop. As long as they only drop one piece with no pawns left, it's still a draw, because neither side can make a new queen. And, for example, a knight and bishop against the opponent's bishop, or a knight and bishop against the opponent's knight is still technically a draw. So right now, if Arjun wants to play it safe, he can just remove this white pawn from the board, remove the other white pawn, and
yeah,
draw.
But then, yeah, those winning chances just disappear. Yeah. So I think the only way to keep the game alive is to actually retreat the bishop, so that you keep the passed g-pawn under lock and key.
Yeah, black can stop that pawn with his bishop, but okay, we're going to see the end of today's match over the next few moves. White's knight stepping back. Even if black's pawns disappear, remember, it is a draw. But, okay, he'll just try and keep those if possible, and Magnus doesn't even want to hang around. We're going to see this game end with king versus king. And Magnus takes the first day of the final.
He does. A draw in the final game. He could have won it even, Magnus, but 3 games, it is over. He takes the first match in dominant fashion. This means Arjun Erigaisi tomorrow will have to win that match to take it to tiebreaks. Magnus Carlsen is on fire. He could have won this game. Where did it go wrong, David?
Yeah, Magnus could have won this game in a variety of ways, actually, but I think he just miscalculated and he let the win slip. Of course, it wasn't essential, the win, but let's just show the moment where Erigaisi clinched the draw. And it was here. Magnus has won a pawn. We showed this earlier. And black is suddenly about to win this white pawn. And Magnus miscalculated. He brought his king forward. And I think what he was planning was to bring his king forward even further. But the problem is here, black has a really sneaky move. Black's king is offside. Black needs to defend this pawn before the white king comes to the center. And black can actually do that both in one go. He can centralize his king, and the white king, as soon as it steps forward, simply gets checked back. No way now, no time for white to pick up this pawn. And this would have resulted in a retreat. Instead, if Magnus had not started bringing his king forward, if, for example, he'd pushed a pawn forward, meeting king takes pawn with a nasty knight jump, removing this knight from the center, then he would have won. For example, after knight takes knight, white can even flick in, bishop takes pawn, check, flicking in as Zwischenzug, as we call it, and now this pawn is going to decide the game. That was maybe not easy to see, but a draw good enough for the world champion in the end.
Absolutely. How will you sum up Magnus Carlsen's performance today, David?
Just calm, controlled, measured, just he looks at the top of his game.
Yeah. Was it Arjun that also struggled? Did he do some mistakes, or was it just impossible to face Magnus in the way he's playing today?
It felt like it was impossible, to be honest. I mean, my small criticism of Arjun, maybe at the beginning, he was slightly passive, too cautious. But okay, you know, the way that Magnus was playing, he was just remorseless.
Yeah. And we're joined by Magnus. Congratulations on a huge performance today.
Yeah, thank you. Score was obviously very good. I'm far from satisfied with my play. I think it was pretty. There were some pretty bad moments today, but yeah, overall I can't complain.
Last game, we did see you were a little bit annoyed when a move there sort of cost you the win. Is that one of those moments you're a little bit annoyed about?
Yeah, also, like, the opening, I made several mistakes, so I just landed in a very poor position. But I don't know. It felt to me that he didn't fully believe in it, which I can't understand. So maybe he didn't take his chances in the last game fully either, because I think at some point he had serious chances to press, but it didn't feel like he was sort of grasping the moment. And yeah, of course, at the end, I thought I was just winning easily by bringing the king, and then I just miscalculated that he could throw it back with check, so I had to force a draw. But, you know, that's just annoying, because, I mean, I thought I'd played a decent ending, and I'd gone from worse to, at that point, much better. Of course, it has something to do with the fact that he has the win as well. That probably affected his play negatively. But,
yeah.
So, I mean, it was enough.
Now, you mentioned also the opening that you weren't too happy with those, but are you aware in game 1 and 2 that you played novelties? Was that something you had prepared?
No, I wasn't aware. First game was pretty random. I mean, I didn't know exactly what he was going to play in the opening. He has a very wide repertoire, so I decided just to evade his preparation and go for something quiet, and it worked out well in the sense that I got a strategically superior position pretty soon. The second game, I guess, was an idea which fairly new. I just couldn't remember the point behind it. So, but it worked out okay. I mean, I got a much better position from the opening match.
Well, actually, Peter Heine, your coach, tweeted during that opening of the second game. One gets the impression that Ergaisi has not studied the games from the 2018 Under-14 Girls Brazilian Championship. I don't know if this is some humor. What can we read out of that tweet? Is there something from a game there that you guys had prepared?
No, it's there's an old story about Botvinnik. When he was coaching a young Dutch player at the time, Jeroen Piquet, and Geno Sosonko, who was Piquet's mentor, he came along on the trip with him to Soviet Union. Anyway, at some point, Botvinnik asked him to Piquet to just translate some question about some game from like Metal Workers Championship in 2022 or something, and says, I'm not going to ask him. He obviously doesn't know that, and Botvinnik was like, ask him anyway. So I think the joke plays on that. It's pretty well known in the chess community.
All right. I need to study up in the chess community then. Magnus, you've been so far focusing a little bit on your mistakes today, but it's been some fantastic play. And in game 2, knight d5 is something that David focused a lot on. Making that move was basically the only winning move. Anything else would probably lose the game. Were you aware at that moment how tight of a rope you were balancing on?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I was a bit lucky there. I hadn't seriously considered the fact that he would take my rook because I thought he would just lose. And then I'd missed this idea of knight to 6. So at that point, I pretty quickly realized that every other move loses, so I had to play knight d5. And the fact that he has no defense after that was, a little bit lucky, but considering the position, it's not too surprising. But fortunately, I had a couple of minutes there to calculate, so I could easily eliminate all the other alternatives.
Yeah. And you have now won 12 out of the 16 last games, as you know, getting very close to 2,900 on the tour ratings. Can you say some positives about the way you're playing now? It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm winning. That's positive.
All right, Magnus, we wish you best of luck tomorrow as well, second day.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. All right, Magnus Carlsen, he is happy about winning. A little bit critical of his play. And we're joined also by Arjun Erigaisi. A tough first day. How are you feeling right now, Arjun?
Hi, I'm a bit disappointed with my play and the overall result, but it's going to help me for sure, so I'll take it as a positive turn.
Yeah. Do you think it was a little bit of nerves and also what we often call the Magnus effect playing Magnus Carlsen?
Yeah, I have been telling myself not to think too much about the fact that I'm playing against Magnus and just try to play it as if it's any other opponent. I don't know if that helped or not, but in the first game, I think I could play g5 at some point, and I saw the move, but I didn't go for it. That's what frustrates me the most.
And of course, the great thing about this, even if you lose the first match, there is another one that you can win. So what do you think you need to change up to win the games tomorrow?
I'm not really sure. It's just evident that he is the better player, but I don't know. Hopefully, things will go my way, and I'll try to play my best chess.
Yeah. I mean, Magnus is playing some incredible chess. He's won now 12 out of the last 16 games. Is it a difficult time to face the world #1 playing some of his best chess?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult to face Magnus, but I'll take it as a positive experience. It will help me become a better chess player and with my chess in general. So it's a good learning.
And what will you do now? Will you just take the rest of the night off and not think about chess, or will you do some work or talk to your coach a little bit before going to sleep?
I guess I'll just analyze the games a bit, and I think I'll just do some chess and go to sleep.
Sounds like a good plan. Wake up fresh tomorrow. Arjun, you still have chances tomorrow, so we wish you best of luck on day 2.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. All right, do you think it's a sensible plan? Take a little bit of a look on the games and then go to sleep.
Yeah, I do think so, you know, because otherwise your mind will be working overtime, and those chances that he missed, they will perhaps haunt him. Best to kind of get them over with, and then he can reset and enjoy a new day.
Yeah. What does he need to change tomorrow, Arjun, to have a chance?
I mean, like he said, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. He could stay up all night. He could spend the whole morning preparing openings. They likely won't come up anyway. So it's just, I just want to praise his mentality. He's taking this as a learning experience. If he strikes back tomorrow, great. If not, he'll be back. He'll play Magnus plenty times in future. And I think maybe with a bit more aggression, I think that's his best chance.
Okay. Well, it is a loss on day 1. Magnus Carlsen, he played a fantastic game 1 to win that. Second game was also a great one, winning in 30 moves and taking that point. In game 3, he only needed a draw. Magnus Carlsen, he was actually about to win that game, but a mistake, and that game ended with a draw. Magnus takes the first match, and that means Arjun, he will have to win tomorrow's match to take it to blitz tiebreaks. If Magnus only wins the first 2 games tomorrow, it's going to be over. He will be the winner of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. But Arjun, he's young. He's only 19. He can definitely make a comeback. So stay with us again tomorrow to watch the finish of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. Should be a good day, and Magnus Carlsen chasing 2,900 on the tour ratings. So we wish you all a great evening wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.